Yimu Fan's voice froze. Mind your own business. It's my life. Fire arose in Yi Wanwan's eyes. Does Shin Ming-chi know you're useless and spend your time idling all day long? As he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and was also the only grandson in the family, Yimu Fan was spoiled to the point where he became self-satisfied, unwilling to work hard to improve himself. He was also hedonistic. He took pleasure in hanging out with a gang of scoundrels all the time. In addition to fighting, racing, gambling, fooling around with women, and loafing through life. But there was no denying he was very good-looking and had a smooth way of talking to people. He was also normally very kind to this little sister of his, no matter where he went. He never forgot to prepare a special present for her. Also, all she had to do was give him a call for help and he'd drop everything to help her no matter what he was doing. In her previous life, she hated him for having no ambition. When her family fell apart, he gave up on himself and refused to work to better his circumstances. Yimu Fan's relationship with her also soured further when she discarded her dignity and allowed Gu Yuze to take advantage of her. Whenever they saw each other, they usually ended up in a big fight, incapable of communicating with each other. By the end, they stopped talking altogether. As expected, Yimu Fan's voice turned even colder after Yi Wanwan's words. Don't keep bringing Shan Ming-chi up to threaten me. Anyway, to all of you, I'm just a useless piece of garbage. Ming-chi's not like you. She never criticized me for anything, never looked down on me. That's because she doesn't even care about you. You dumbass. Yi Wanwan shouted, unable to hold herself back anymore. Yimu Fan was instantly agitated by Yi Wanwan's words and sneered. TSK, you think I'm dumb? You think I'm useless, just idling all day long? Yi Wanwan, what right do you have to criticize me? Do you know how our family ended up in this state? Do you know what kind of scum Gu Yuze is? The Gu Yuze you follow around like a shameless dog? Which one of us has the heart of a wolf and lungs of a dog? Yi Wanwan trembled in fury at Yimu Fan's words. She dug her nails into her palms. It's me. It's me who's dumb. It's me who's useless. It's me who idles all day long. I'm the one who ruined the Yi family. I'm the cruel one who cut ties with mom and dad. But I was also wronged and framed. I didn't do drugs at all. I didn't fall in with the wrong crowd. Do you believe me? I was sent to that place, terrified. I was cut off from all communication to the outside world. I couldn't contact Dad, Mom, or you at all, and when I finally escaped, my life was in shambles. My friends left me. My fiancé broke up with me. My family and relatives, even Grandpa and Grandma, all scolded Dad. And remember how you treated me? You just criticized and cursed at me nonstop, not to mention that slap. But gee, when I was locked up, where were you? When I was injected with drugs by Yi, where were you? I've been all alone in the world these 2 years. Have you ever once stopped to think about what I've been through? Have you cared one bit? What right do you have to criticize me then? As she said the last word, Yi Wanwan's voice began to shatter. The phone remained silent for a very long time before his frantic voice came through. You knew? Yi Wanwan suppressed her shaking voice and continued. I was too gullible, so I fell into their trap. I was too arrogant, so I kept breaking Mom and Dad's hearts. I was too weak, so that they had to sacrifice so much in order to protect me. I caused them to lose their reputation and fall from grace in order to protect me. I caused them to have to live under someone else's roof and suffer all kinds of humiliation and pain, while I, the main culprit, kept living, blissfully unaware. But I didn't know. I didn't know anything at all. Nobody told me. I wouldn't have guessed that my ignorance and stupidity could harm the people closest to me so badly. Yimu Fan sounded shocked. How did you find out? Did Mom and Dad tell you? No, impossible. They'd never tell you. Doesn't matter how I found out. Yimu Fan, if you want to continue wasting your life, then go on. If you want to continue believing in an outsider, it's up to you. I'll be the one taking care of and protecting Mom and Dad next time. I'll take revenge for the Yi family. Yi Wanwan hung up without waiting for Yimu Fan's response. After the phone call, Yi Wanwan returned to Jean Garden, preoccupied with her thoughts. When she made this phone call, she was already a little on edge. But now, with the guilt and self-reproach combined from her 2 lives, In addition to the nasty criticism from her brother who never spoke so harshly to her in the past, she couldn't keep it together anymore. Yuanwan took a deep breath and tried her best to control her emotions. At this moment, her phone rang with a ding, and a piece of entertainment news popped up. Yuanwan opened the article and saw that a media company had published another explosive piece of news. Han Xian, you had attacked a reporter in a moment of rage. All the netizens scolded him, with the situation becoming more and more unfavorable towards Han Xianyu. For these sudden scandals, the celebrity had to prove his innocence within a certain time frame. If the scandal was dragged out for a long time, the public would be left with a bad impression even if the star was eventually proven innocent. I have to quickly talk with Han Xianyu's people and turn the situation around before it's too late. However, before I can settle things, I need a suitable identity. With that thought, Yuanwan was at a loss. Actually, she had stumbled into this problem before because the conditions Ce Han laid out in exchange for her freedom included a very strict rule: no attracting the opposite sex. How could she ever fulfill that? Thankfully, I didn't decide to be a celebrity. Otherwise, this clause alone would prevent me from doing anything. But even working behind the scenes, this face of mine will never be completely safe. She thought about whether she wanted to use her exotic, heavy makeup look, but it was impractical. The entertainment field wasn't the same as school, it was much crueler and more realistic. Furthermore, the entertainment field was a place where looks were of utmost importance. With that terrifying face, she'd scare people off even before she could start talking about working together. Yuanwan used all her brain juices to think of a solution when a pair of familiar footsteps and the clear voice of a man came from behind her. "You finished your exams?" Yuanwan immediately turned her head and saw a certain someone dressed in a completely black suit, looking pleasing to the eye as usual. "You're back. So early? I thought you said that you had a meeting today?" "It's over." "Oh." Ce Han stared at her for a few seconds and then suddenly asked, "You didn't do well?" Yuanwan blinked her eyes in confusion. Nope, I think I did quite well this time. Everyone complained about how hard the last math question was, but I was able to do it. Anyway, what made you suddenly ask if I didn't do well?" Ce Han replied, "You're unhappy." Yuanwan was slightly speechless. I went to wash my face when I arrived home and even took a very long time to readjust my feelings, yet he could still tell I'm unhappy. Yuanwan coughed lightly. "It's not that I'm unhappy. I just have a problem I can't solve." "What problem?" Ce Han loosened the tie on his collar and sat down on the sofa. Yuanwan thought about the best way to phrase her sentence before shifting closer to him. "It's like this. Baby, there's a rule in the agreement you set previously, the one that states I'm not allowed to attract the opposite sex. I think this rule is too unreasonable." Ce Han glanced at her. "Unreasonable?" Yuanwan instantly nodded her head. That's right. Think about it. How beautiful is your girlfriend? Don't you know? With my face, how could I not attract any suitors? Even if I don't want to be a celebrity in the future, I might not even be 100% safe just working behind the scenes. So could you please remove this rule? After all, any attraction to me would be due to my face. It's not me who wants to attract the men. Ce Han cast a sidelong glance at her when he heard her shameless proclamation, "How beautiful is your girlfriend?" and replied, "I never said it was reasonable." Upon hearing Ce Han's "must the rules set by the king be reasonable" tone, Yuanwan was left without any words to rebut him. Fine. Your servant will think of a way, all right?" Yuanwan scratched her head in frustration. "I could cover this face with thick makeup, but it's a disadvantage to be that ugly in this industry. So what's the best way to completely prevent the opposite sex from being attracted to me? I've thought about it over and over again, and could only come up with one solution." Ce Han looked at her, interested to know the answer. Thus, Yuanwan paused, and she looked at Ce Han with sparkling eyes. "The solution is to dress as a man. I won't attract any suitors then. I'm a total genius." With regards to Yuanwan's mind-blowing idea, Ce Han's expression was. Yuanwan skipped over and tried her best to sell the idea to him. "Don't you think this would be the safest way? Then next time, baby, you wouldn't have to worry about me attracting other men." The more Yuanwan thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. This face of hers was pretty troublesome, and it was already pretty inconvenient for a girl like her to be in the entertainment industry. If she pretended to be a man, it'd be easier for her to work in the field. The best thing was that her looks wouldn't go to waste since pretty boys were a trend now. Han supported his head on one hand, and his eyes shifted a little. Yuanwan couldn't tell whether he agreed with her idea or not. What this little wretch said makes some sense, but I somehow feel like there's something wrong somewhere. Yuanwan muttered softly. Wanwan's already trying her very, very best to follow your rules. As she spoke, Sui walked over from the kitchen to inform them that dinner was ready. When Yuanwan saw Sui, she immediately tried to make him an ally. She hurriedly waved him over. Housekeeper Sue, come over. I have something I need your opinion on. Me. Sui first glanced at his master before making his way over suspiciously. Yuanwan immediately said, It's the summer holidays now, and I'll be going to university very soon. I already went through most of the syllabus for university, and I'll definitely focus all my energy on my work in future, but this face of mine is not so good for keeping a harmonious family. In order to prevent some unnecessary trouble, I came up with the idea of dressing up as a man. What do you think? Isn't it great? While speaking, Yuanwan gave Sui a secret nod, trying to tell him that they were on the same team. Dress as the man? Sui genuinely thought there was a big hole in Yuanwan's brain. But if Yuanwan pretends to be a man, there wouldn't be any other men harassing her anymore, right? The skies will be clear as long as Master doesn't get jealous. Sui thought about it earnestly and found it a surprisingly sound idea, so he spoke up. It's indeed more convenient to be a man and safer for you too. Yuanwan was surprised. Baby, look. Housekeeper Sue also agreed. When Yuanwan finished speaking, she discreetly opened a webpage on her phone for him to see. Baby, I have to quickly start working and earn money. Look. I've already chosen the props I want to use in future. The link was to purchase a pair of studded diamonds and extremely shiny, sexy handcuffs. Han. Okay. Finally, things were settled. Yuanwan let out a yelp and kissed Han. Many years later, people often ask this wise and strategic man, the most outstanding master in the history of the C family, whether he made any bad decisions in life. Each time someone asked him this question, Han thought back to this day. And a certain male housekeeper also expressed sorrow at the way his life had been drastically affected. After she overcame this big obstacle, Yuanwan then moved on to the next step of her plan. She disguised herself as a reporter and added the little girl's father, Zhao Diyong, on his personal WeChat and QQ. She read through every single detail in his profile, his circle of friends, his space, and all the daily messages he sent to various social accounts. Then, by using her memory, she found everything she needed. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yuanwan went through the messages Zhao Diyong published on his social media the entire night. She fell asleep unknowingly and was only woken up by a phone call from Jiang Yanran the next morning. Half an hour after she hung up, Yuanwan reached the entrance of the court. Many fashionable teenagers crowded together, and there were a few people who held signs. Written on the signs were along the lines of, Han Xianyu is framed, Han Xianyu is innocent, burn the rumors. At the same time, there were also many reporters waiting outside the court. In her past life, the incident about Han Xianyu sexually abusing a child reached everybody and had a great impact on society. Yuanwan hadn't forgotten the sequence of events. The girl's father should be taking Han Xianyu to court today. Wanwanjia, you're here too? Chu Feng, who was dressed casually, squeezed through the crowd and walked to Yuanwan. Yeah, Yuanwan nodded. Yanran called me just now. Zhang Yanran was Han Xianyu's die-hard fan. She got the news firsthand that the girl's father was taking Han Xianyu to court, and she immediately called Chu Feng and Yuanwan over. Wanwan, you're here. When Zhang Yanran saw Yuanwan, she nearly teared up from feeling so aggrieved. Even people with little knowledge of the law know that those so-called pieces of evidence are not substantial. Why is everyone saying that Xianxian's guilty so confidently? Since the matter's been brought to court, shouldn't they back their words with evidence? That couple would resort to every conceivable means of getting money. What's more infuriating are those reporters fanning the flames, Chu Feng said, agitated. Today, Mr. and Mrs. Zhao are bringing the current most popular celebrity, Han Xianyu, to court. According to the report, the court has officially accepted this case. We will continue to monitor this report closely. A formally dressed female reporter spoke in front of the camera. Quite a number of people at the court entrance joined in on the buzz. Each person had their own opinion about the case. All these celebrities now are really dirty. He won't even let a little kid off. Exactly. That Han Xianyu changed his villa into a theme park and said he was doing charity work the whole time, but it was all to do something so perverted. He's worse than a beast. Mr. and Mrs. Zhao's little girl is really pitiful. Why was she targeted by that bastard? He left such a big shadow over that little girl. I'm sure this little girl isn't the only one who was abused. If Mr. and Mrs. Zhao didn't bring this matter up, I'm not sure how many others would suffer in silence. Damn, are all these people idiots? Hearing the crowd call Han Xianyu a bastard, Chu Feng was fuming and looked like he was about to charge up to argue with them, but was stopped by Yi Wanwan. What are you doing? Wanwan, yeah, they don't even have any evidence. They're saying it's raining when they only heard the howling of the wind. The court hasn't given their verdict, yet these people are convicting my idol of the crime already. How could they? Chu Feng gritted his teeth. Yi Wanwan, are you sure that Han Xianyu's your idol? This guy's fallen too deep. Aren't you tarnishing Han Xianyu's name if you argue with him? Then people would just start saying that Han Xianyu's fans were making a scene. Chu Feng paused, nodded, and looked at Yi Wanwan in a daze. Wanwan, yeah, you're right. Zhang Yanran nodded. We must never be swayed, no matter what other people say. Han Xianyu's fans weren't bad. They were simply holding their banners up and weren't arguing with anybody. Meanwhile, the reporters at the court entrance tried to influence public opinion, provoking the crowd to convict Han Xianyu of the crime directly. When those gossipy passerbys overheard Zhang Yanran's conversation, they all shot disdainful looks at their group. All these youngsters can't tell right from wrong. The issue has already gotten to this point, yet they're still unable to distinguish the truth and keep insisting that the bastard isn't guilty and was framed. They actually support those kinds of bastards who wouldn't even let a child off. Their brains must be damaged. Zhang Yanran's eyes turned red from anger. All these people had no idea at all. They didn't know the significance of an idol. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. At this moment, a tall and skinny reporter with a pointy mouth and a chin like a monkey's squeezed through the crowd to get to Zhang Yanran. At the same time, she made the cameraman point the camera at her. She was up to no good. Miss, may I know if you're a fan of Han Xianyu? The lanky reporter asked in an odd tone. Zhang Yanran looked straight into the camera and responded resolutely, yes. The reporter then passed the microphone over. With regards to the incident of Han Xianyu sexually abusing a little girl, what are your thoughts? Zhang Yanran suppressed the anger boiling inside and replied calmly, Mr. Reporter, before I reply to your question, I don't agree with the way you phrased it. The court hasn't come to a verdict yet, so you shouldn't use words like sexually abuse. The reporter sneered. The girl's statement has already been publicized and traces of the sleeping pill have also been found in her body and were reported very clearly in the medical report. Many insiders, even Han Xianyu's ex-girlfriend, already divulged that Han Xianyu's a pedophile. It's an open secret in the industry. There is also photo evidence of Han Xianyu lying in the same bed with many little girls. Do you still think Han Xianyu is innocent? Zhang Yanran clenched her fists. From the viewpoint of the law, all this evidence can't prove that Han Xianyu did anything at all. The statement was given by the girl alone. There were no witnesses around. Also, we can't be sure who fed the sleeping pill to the little girl. All the news that the so-called insiders provided were also just verbal statements and those photos. All the evidence is laid out in front of you, yet you're still denying the truth. So this is the kind of fans Han Xianyu has. The girl's statement, photo, and medical report have been presented, yet you're still trying to distort the truth. Like idol, like fans. The reporter interrupted Zhang Yanran in a fit. Zhang Yanran was also enraged by what he said. What do you mean, like idol, like fans? Han Xianyu has always been charitable and kind ever since his debut. He spreads positivity to his fans, But the truth is, all this was just to cover up his dirty, perverted, and despicable self. Once again, the reporter interrupted her. Since the court has already accepted the case, shouldn't we leave the court to give the verdict? Who are you to? With such irrefutable evidence, do we still need to wait for a verdict from the court? Or is it that Han Xianyu is unable to bribe the little girl's parents and wants to pressure the court instead? Let me tell you, no matter what the court's verdict is, the fact that Han Xianyu sexually assaulted a little girl will never change. If the court is unable to bring justice to the victims, then we reporters have to seek justice for them instead. The reporter yelled. The lanky reporter's words suddenly incited all the other reporters to join in. That's right. We must seek justice for the victims. Don't think you can screw over people just because you're rich and powerful. You think just because you have fans, you'll be able to change public opinion? In your dreams. Remove this public cancerous tumor. Let's get the fans to face the truth. How could a pretty girl like you be so cruel? The entire life of that little child was ruined by that bastard. Yet you're still speaking up for him. Are you even human? I didn't. I was merely speaking the truth. The truth is that Han Xianyu is a despicable and filthy pervert. Zhang Yin tried to reason things out calmly, but nobody wanted to speak reason. Nobody bothered about the rationality of the evidence, and all of them just attacked her, shoving the camera in her face. Chu Feng was squeezed out of the crowd and became anxious, seeing that the situation was getting out of hand and Zhang Yin was being attacked from all sides. Awo kicked me. At that moment, the cameraman next to Jiang Yin suddenly felt a sharp pain on his calf and his body tilted to one side, knocking the camera of another reporter to the floor. Both of them started fighting. While the crowd was in chaos, Yuanwan quietly sneaked to Jiang Yin's side and swiftly placed her jacket over Jiang Yin's head. Let's go. Don't be silly. You can't reason with these people. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The three of them finally managed to disentangle themselves from the reporters surrounding them. Yinran, are you okay? Are you hurt? It's all my fault. I didn't protect you properly. Chu Feng blamed himself. Jiang Yin stood rooted to the ground in a daze, not saying a word, having gotten a big blow from what just happened. Yuanwan hugged her lightly, then turned to Chu Feng and said, "Take Yin back. It's better for her not to leave the house for now." The reporters would never let this juicy news go. They definitely used this interview with Jiang Yin to craft an article. As expected, the interview with Jiang Yin was taken out of context by the reporters and posted all over the internet. Fans of Han Xianyu were labeled as brainless, and whoever spoke up for Han Xianyu was attacked viciously by the righteous people. Following that, Southeast Daily newspaper, where that lanky reporter was from, uncovered even more explosive news. An ex-employee who had worked at Han Xianyu's villa revealed that he often saw Han Xianyu disappearing with little girls for entire afternoons, and the cries of the girls could be heard from his bedroom. This news gave rise to more speculations from the public. All the evidence pointed to the fact that Han Xianyu sexually assaulted the little girl. Just a simple piece of celebrity gossip quickly became the hottest topic in town. In front of an enormous mirror, Yuanwan lowered her head and rolled up her sleeves leisurely. The corners of her rosy lips curled upwards, and in the next second, she suddenly raised her head. Her stunning face was warped by a stern and indifferent appearance. The warm beauty of a teenage girl slowly faded away. At this moment, worldwide entertainment was completely surrounded by furious reporters and agitated civilians. There were a few broken windows. The entrance was littered with rotten vegetables and eggs, and there was even the stench of urine. Every single day, around the clock without fail, there were protesters shouting and holding banners up, "Kick Han Xianyu out of the entertainment industry." Worldwide entertainment is protecting scum. Seek justice for the victim. In the meeting room of Worldwide Entertainment, everyone hung their heads low and didn't speak a word. The atmosphere was so heavy that it was almost frozen. The incident has already escalated up to this point. Groups of people have been at our office cursing us for days, yet each one of you here is mute now. How do we solve this issue exactly? All of you better give me a solution by today. The chairman of Worldwide Entertainment, Chu Hongguang, threw a pile of newspapers on the meeting table and howled in a violent rage, his plump body trembling with anger. He took a deep breath, shoved down the fury in his heart, and looked at the lawyer sitting opposite. Let me ask you, how confident are you that we can win this case? The lawyer's face was slightly pale as he replied stiffly, at the moment, public opinion is all on the girl's side. As civilians are very worked up over this incident, the court will more or less be affected by pressure from the public. If we're really going ahead with this lawsuit, we would have to change public opinion and find concrete evidence that could turn the case. I'm afraid this will drag on for a very long time. Very long time? How long? Chu Hongguang's face sank. If this issue got dragged out, it would be the equivalent of a slow death for Han Xianyu. After all, it was the golden period of Han Xianyu's career right now. With negative publicity, however, his road to stardom was doomed. Which director or brand would hire a celebrity with such a negative image? The lawyer swallowed and gave a safe estimate. Best case scenario, at least 2 to 3 years. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. 2 to 3 years? Chu Hongguang's face darkened. If he had to carry this stain for 2 to 3 years, even if he won in the end, Han Xianyu would be totally worthless by then and would bring down the company's reputation for a few years. Do we have any other options? The lawyer paused for a moment. I suggest settling this out of court and trying our best to minimize the damage from this incident. When Fei Yang heard that, he was anxious. How can we do that? Isn't that the same as admitting guilt? Han Xianyu's name would be stained forever. At this moment, a refined gentleman in a gray suit across Fei Yang said casually, "So you want to drag all the celebrities in the company down just for Han Xianyu's sake?" Fei Yang's expression changed. "Zhou Wenbin, what are you trying to say?" Zhou Wenbin shrugged. "Fei Yang, we can't be too righteous. This issue was started by Han Xianyu and implicated everyone in the company. Even our shares are dropping. To date, you don't even have any evidence to prove his innocence. Do you really want everybody in the company to be dragged down with him and await their deaths?" Zhou Wenbin's words garnered the support of many of the other managers. Wenbin's right, there's no reason for all of us to take the blame for Han Xianyu's wrongdoings, right? I also think the best course of action right now is to cut our losses immediately. The discussion got louder with almost everyone agreeable to settling this out of court. There were even some managers who complained, resentful of Han Xianyu for implicating the celebrities they were in charge of. While the rowdy discussions were underway, Fei Yang's face turned uglier and both his hands shook with fury. When Han Xianyu basked in glory, so many of them sucked up to him. Which of the celebrities under the management of these people didn't freeload on Han Xianyu's popularity? But now, everyone's hitting a man when he's down. Xianyu, say something. All these people are pushing you to your death. Fei Yang couldn't take it any longer, and he turned to Han Xianyu, who hadn't said a word. Han Xianyu sat silently in the meeting room. It seemed like he hadn't heard the discussions and noise around him. His pale face and dark eye circles revealed how worn out he was from this crisis. He glanced coldly at all these people who wanted him to give up, an inexpressible emotion in his eyes. When Zhou Wenbin heard everyone backing him up, a shred of subtle happiness beamed across his face as he turned to Chu Hongguang. "Chairman Chu, this implicates the reputation of the company, so we really hope you make a decision soon." Chu Hongguang listened as everyone argued. He had a terrible headache. Naturally, he couldn't bear to let go of his money tree, Han Xianyu, but judging by the circumstances, it was probably too late to save Han Xianyu at this point. If this dragged on, it would be disastrous for the company and could also defame the other celebrities. Fei Yang saw that Chu Hongguang was slightly wavering and he said anxiously, "Boss, Xianyu definitely didn't do those things. That couple is obviously trying to extort money from him. It's all for money. If we just give them some money, then Xianyu will be in the clear." Fei Yang, is maintaining Han Xianyu's innocence still important? Zhou Wenbin sneered and his gaze swept to the pale Han Xianyu. What's important is not whether he did it or not. The public already believes he did it. Fei Yang prepared to argue with Zhou Wenbin. However, Chu Hongguang raised his hand and interrupted the two of them. He spoke gravely. When Bin's right, it's not important whether Han Xianyu did it or not. What's important is how we're going to protect the interests of the company. Chu Hongguang's words instantly made Fei Yang's face turn ghastly white. He looked at Han Xianyu in panic. Han Xianyu, who had just been sitting there with his handsome face completely numb, finally pursed his lips when he heard Chu Hongguang say, "It's not important whether Han Xianyu did it or not. TSK, not important. Everybody thinks it's not important." Under the everyone's anticipatory gaze, Chu Hongguang took a deep breath. The corners of his lips moved slightly, and it looked like he was about to speak. Han Xianyu closed his eyes slowly. He didn't need to hear what Chu Hongguang was going to say. He could already see his fate. After careful consideration, regarding Han Xianyu's scandal, I've decided to protect the best interests of the company. We will immediately settle this out of court in accordance to the lawyer's advice and— A loud bang suddenly swallowed the last few words from Chu Hongguang's speech. Every single person in the meeting room turned towards the sound. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The door of the meeting room was pushed open by someone, and a beautiful and dazzling teenager appeared at the entrance unexpectedly. Sorry to interrupt. The lips of this stunning teenager moved slightly, showing off his manly charms. Everyone in the meeting room was already accustomed to all kinds of beauty, but was still stunned by this teenager's looks. However, someone quickly recovered his composure. When Zhou Wenbin saw that Chairman Chu's decision was abruptly interrupted, he felt annoyed and stared sternly at the face before him. "Who are you? Who allowed you in?" Behind the teenager, Han Xianyu's little assistant said meekly, This gentleman here said that he has a way to solve Han Xianyu's crisis." The corners of Zhou Wenbin's lips trembled and his expression turned uglier. "Fei Yang, is this person under you? Don't you know the rules? Do you know what kind of place this is? How could you simply allow a stranger in? Where's the security? Drag this person out." Chu Hongguang furrowed his brows and also felt upset as he looked at the young man at the door. A number of security guards rushed over quickly and prepared to grab the teenager. However, the teenager's mocking gaze swept across the brawny security guards. The smirk on his face widened as he continued to stand there and said calmly, "If Chairman Chu wants to personally destroy this money tree, then you may get security to escort me out." The little assistant was also worried about this mess. She only realized her recklessness for allowing a stranger in after being scolded. But when she saw the unclouded gaze of the young man, she felt a strange peacefulness. It seemed like Chu Hongguang was hit with a piercing blow right at his weak spot by the words "money tree." His gloomy face was stunned, and just as the security guards were about to take action, he suddenly said, "Wait." The security guards immediately stopped moving. Zhou Wenbin's face darkened further, and there was a hint of unease in his eyes. Chu Hongguang looked sternly at the teenager. "Our friend here. Who exactly are you, and do you really have a solution to Han Xianyu's incident?" "That's right." The teenager spoke calmly and curled his lips, making his face appear even more stunning. Many managers in the meeting room were secretly astonished by the look of this teenager. They couldn't help but wonder where this beautiful boy popped out from. Chu Hongguang frowned slightly. He really couldn't bear to let Han Xianyu go. If he had a choice, he would never chop this money tree off. When he heard the teenager had a solution, even if it was just a shred of hope, he'd definitely grab hold of it. He asked eagerly, "What's your solution?" Zhou Wenbin saw that Chu Hongguang was persuaded and immediately stared at the teenager, a hint of gloominess in his eyes. As long as Han Xianyu was gone, the male celebrity he managed, who was qualified to act in the same roles as Han Xianyu, would be able to ride on Han Xianyu's coattails and become famous immediately. He had waited for this chance for so long, and finally had an opportunity to destroy Han Xianyu had appeared. How could he simply let someone else mess this up for him? "Boss, we don't even know who this person is. How can we trust him? What if he's a spy from Emperor Sky?" The teenager stroked his sleeves when he heard that and smirked. "If I'm a spy from Emperor Sky, I would be throwing a party at this moment. I'm afraid I wouldn't have the time to visit your company." The appearance of the unidentified man filled the huge meeting room with a strange atmosphere. Who exactly are you? Even the public relations at Worldwide can't handle this case. So who are you to say that you can change how the public sees Han Xianyu? Bro, please don't speak without using your head here. Right now, Han Xianyu's reputation is secondary. The main issue is that Worldwide Entertainment's reputation is tied with this incident. Some of the top management at Worldwide Entertainment looked at the man, sizing him up. Chairman Chu, don't listen to the flowery speech of this guy. He must be a secret agent sent by Emperor Sky to scout for information. Zhou Wenbin stood up. Upon hearing what Zhou Wenbin said, a chill emerged in Chu Hongguang's eyes. As everyone knew, Emperor Sky Entertainment and Worldwide Entertainment had always been at loggerheads. This incident with Han Xianyu had impacted Worldwide Entertainment so badly that it was plausible for Emperor Sky to send someone to scout for information. Secret agent? The teenager looked at Zhou Wenbin as he smiled mockingly and sneered. With this level of intelligence, it's very hard for me to understand how you actually managed to be included in Worldwide Entertainment's board meeting. Zhou Wenbin was taken aback for a second, then his eyes widened as he shouted, "Bastard, what did you say?" "What did I say?" The teenager shrugged. "Everyone here knows I just called you an idiot." "You." Zhou Wenbin's face turned slightly sinister. "This punk who just came out of nowhere actually barged into our meeting room and called me an idiot in front of all my superiors and managers?" "Security! Security!" Zhou Wenbin suddenly yelled, "Take this garbage out!" Hearing the explosive anger from the meeting room, the few security guards on standby quickly surrounded the teenager again. "What are all of you just standing there for? Didn't you hear what I just said?" Zhou Wenbin glared at the guards. The teenager shook his head. He didn't even bother to glance at Zhou Wenbin's commotion and instead directed his gaze at the man in the main seat, Chu Hongguang. It's been said that Worldwide Entertainment's chairman, Chu, has extraordinary courage, but what a pity it was all hearsay. It turned out that in the board meetings, it's actually a nobody manager who calls the shots. It's been quite the eye-opener today. An apathetic smile appeared on the teenager's flawless face. Unknown? Zhou Wenbin was nearly driven to his death by anger. Chu Hongguang furrowed his brows. He shot Zhou Wenbin a look before he turned to the security guards and ordered, "All of you, get lost." After the security guards left, Zhou Wenbin gritted his teeth. "Chairman Chu, this guy." But this time, Chu Hongguang waved him off and interrupted him before he could finish. Zhou Wenbin noticed that Chu Hongguang didn't look too happy, so he had no choice but to keep his anger in. He'd been provoked by this little punk just now, which messed with his mind. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone beyond his authority and called for security. "Chairman Chu, with Worldwide Entertainment's current predicament, do you think Emperor Sky needs to send someone over to gather information?" the teenager asked in return. Chu Hongguang pondered about it and did not respond. It was just as this man had said. With the current situation at Worldwide Entertainment, everyone knew that no matter what, it was impossible for them to reverse their fortunes, so there was no need for Emperor Sky to send spies. "What's your name, young man? What advice do you have, coming all the way to my Worldwide Entertainment?" Chu Hongguang asked plainly. "Your humble servant goes by the name Yi Bai. I can't tell you what my motive is," the teenager said as his smile gradually faded away. "I'm here today just to make a deal with your company. The bargaining chip is proving Han Xianyu's innocence and eradicating all negative influences on Worldwide Entertainment as a result of this incident. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." Upon hearing the teenager's so-called bargaining chip, everyone in the meeting room was taken aback, including the main person involved, Han Xianyu. He didn't look as calm as before. Han Xianyu finally raised his head slowly with a mixed expression in his blank and numb eyes as he looked in the direction of the teenager. Zhou Wenbin gave a contemptuous look. "What a joke. Who do you think you are?" Fei Yang was stunned for a moment before he retorted, "Zhou Wenbin, the boss hasn't even said a word, yet you're over here being a pain. Are you scared someone's able to prove Xianyu's innocence?" Zhou Wenbin sneered, "Fei Yang, I think you've lost your mind. This incident is all because of the pressure from the public. Even Worldwide doesn't have the ability to prove Xianyu's innocence. Yet you think this guy can change the public's view? Who on earth is he? Although what Zhou Wenbin said wasn't nice, Fei Yang knew he was right and kept silent. The teenager was unbothered about Zhou Wenbin. He looked at Chu Hongguang and said very calmly, Chairman Chu, since Worldwide is at its wit's end, why not give it a try? If you win, obviously the outcome would be favorable, but even if you don't, there's nothing to lose. There would be no negative impact on Worldwide, right? Chu Hongguang considered the offer for a moment before finally responding. Mr. Yi, right? I don't care who you are, but if you really can deliver what you mentioned and solve this crisis, then Worldwide would thank you indefinitely. But if you're here to cause trouble, then... Chu Hongguang didn't finish his sentence, but everyone could see the warning and threat in his eyes. The teenager smiled slightly like he didn't notice the intimidation in Chu Hongguang's eyes. Chairman Chu's a straightforward man. You'll find out very soon whether what I said is the truth or not. Oh, how would I find out? Chu Hongguang raised his brows. The teenager laughed. Within 7 days, I can prove Han Xianyu's innocence. 7 days? A hint of suspicion appeared on Chu Hongguang's face. Zhou Wenbin's expression changed, and he suddenly stood up, pointing at the teenager. Even if we let you give it a go, you can just tell us directly what great abilities you have. Why do you need to beat around the bush? I think you're just bluffing and putting on a show. When he finished speaking, Zhou Wenbin turned to look at Chu Hongguang and said, Chairman Chu, we really don't know where this person came from. He's so young. Who knows what exactly his intentions are? How can we trust the words of a person like him so easily? Chu Hongguang furrowed his brows. His head was aching badly from all the squabbling around him. While he was still deep in thought, a hoarse voice suddenly interrupted the silence. I trust him. In the meeting room, everyone was startled and immediately turned towards the source of the voice. And they realized that the person who spoke was actually the droopy-eyed and silent Han Xianyu. Han Xianyu lifted his head, and his haggard eyes met the glistening eyes of the teenager. He took a deep breath, stood up, and scanned the people around him. His gaze finally stopped at Chu Hongguang. Chairman Chu, I trust him. Everybody had abandoned him, but now, there was one person who stood up and wanted to prove his innocence. Chu Hongguang's expression was somewhat mixed. Han Xianyu hadn't said a word since the start, and this was the first comment he made. Chu Hongguang sighed. All right then, Xianyu, it's not like the company doesn't want to help you. If this friend here really has an idea that works, I'll give him my fullest support. After that, Chu Hongguang turned to the teenager. What do you need us to do? The corners of the teenager's lips curled upwards slyly. Watch a show. When everyone heard how arrogant the teenager was, they started talking amongst themselves with doubt and mockery. Chu Hongguang laughed. You're very confident, young man. Tell me your conditions. The teenager glanced around. Should I discuss my conditions with just Chairman Chu or everyone else too? Understanding the hint behind the teenager's words, Chu Hongguang waved and ended the meeting, forcing everyone out of the room. Before he left, Zhou Wenbin paused in front of the teenager and glared sternly at him. Damn it, this issue was almost finalized, but this guy messed everything up. I have to wait and see what tricks he has up his sleeve. After a while, there was only the teenager and Chu Hongguang left in the meeting room. Please continue. Chu Hongguang lit a cigar. The teenager sat on the leather chair opposite and went straight to the point. Firstly, I would like a job opportunity at Worldwide. Chu Hongguang replied very frankly. That's easy. If you're really able to help Han Xianyu get over this crisis, Worldwide would naturally want a talent like you. What else? The teenager was silent for a second before continuing. Secondly, I would like a property under Chairman Chu's name. Chu Hongguang took a drag on his cigar and raised his brows slightly. A property under my name? Which property are you referring to, my friend? The teenager concealed the darkness in his eyes and replied in a composed manner, Golden Seas. Hearing the teenager demands, Chu Hongguang paused. Young chap, you really know how to pick them. Previously, after Yi Xiaoting went bankrupt, even the old house was auctioned off by the court. In order to deal with this arch-enemy of his, Chu Hongguang bought this particular property as his spoil of war. The teenager smiled. The district is priceless. Any normal person would ask for it too. Chu Hongguang indicated that he understood. Sure, not a problem. Upon getting a positive response from the chairman, the teenager was much more relaxed as he stood up. Then, Chairman Chu, I wish us success in our cooperation. That's right. I will wait for your good news then. After they were done chatting, Chairman Chu courteously got someone to walk the teenager out. It was only when Yi Wanwan left the building of worldwide entertainment that her tense nerves started to relax. She casually loosened her collar and let out a sigh of relief. Even though there were some twists and turns, she was glad that the deal was on. After all, it was her first time being a man. She was extremely nervous before she went over, but once she was there, she naturally got into character. In her past life, she found out that she was an expert in imitating many different types of people. In this life, after she read many professional books, her imitation skills improved. This innate skill of hers was, without a doubt, extremely advantageous. Yi Wanwan was getting ready to return home when the hoarse voice of a man suddenly came from behind her. Mr. Yi Bai, please wait. Yi Wanwan stopped in her tracks and turned towards the person. Mr. Han? Han Xianyu had always been dazzling and attractive in public, and he was always the confident Han Xianyu in people's eyes. But at this moment, his handsome face was haggard and lethargic. His eye bags were also stained with dark shadows like dark clouds blocking the sun. The second Han Xianyu met the teenager's eyes, he was taken back. Under the gleaming sunshine, the teenager's skin was as fair as snow. His unbuttoned collar revealed his delicate collarbones, and his bright eyes seemed to be the reflection of the stars in the galaxy, forcing him to keep his eyes glued to him. With the teenager's looks, he would stand out even if you put him in a sea of beauties from the showbiz. Compared to his own looks, this teenager wasn't inferior at all. With such a beautiful face, he didn't even have a hint of frivolousness or sissiness. There was an unrestrained severity in his eyes, and the careless arrogance from his eyes showed he was a man of great charm. Han Xianyu stood in front of the teenager, his fists clenched tightly. No matter what your intentions are or why you're helping me, thank you. Thank you for believing me. The teenager smiled. The intensity in his eyes lessened like a haze was dispersing. Don't mention it. My friend's a fan of yours. She really likes you and so do I. Even after hearing so many compliments like this, Han Xianyu experienced an inexplicable feeling just like he had when he just made his debut, like the first time he was recognized by his fans on the streets, and his glacial heart slowly melted in their warmth. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. On the way back, Yi Wanwan went past a florist shop. Initially, she wanted to have a meal with Si Han after the negotiation, but when she woke up this morning, Si Han had already left for work, so she wasn't able to ask him. To prevent a volcano from erupting, she must never forget to pacify him on a daily basis. Hello, welcome. In the florist shop, a girl in a green dress greeted her as usual when she heard the bell on the door. She subconsciously turned to look at the customer. All she saw was the slender hand of a young gentleman pushing the glass door open. He was dressed in a white shirt and had short, flaxen hair. There were all sorts of flowers in the shop. It was like a secret garden of Eden. The man stepped slowly into the soft and soothing music, and she could faintly discern his facial features between the clusters of flowers. When he went past a bouquet of red roses, the man paused and picked one up. He lowered his fluttery lashes and took a light sniff. The sunlight filtered in through the windows and danced on his delicate face. Even the beautiful rose in his hand couldn't measure up to half his attractiveness and faded into the background to bring out his brilliance. Hello, can you help me wrap up a bouquet of red roses, please? When the low and hoarse voice of the man reached her, the shop assistant was abruptly woken up from her daydream as she looked into the glazed and inquiring gaze of the man. She felt a hot flash on both her cheeks and she hurriedly replied, Sure, of course. How many would you like, sir? Yi Wanwan rubbed the petal lightly and thought for a bit before answering, 99 stalks. Sure. I'll get it wrapped up for you. The little shop assistant quickly got down to work while discreetly taking glances and sizing the man up. Oh God, this person's too dashing. He's even better looking than the celebrities on television. I wonder who the lucky girl is who's receiving red roses from this handsome young man. Not to mention it's 99 roses. The little shop assistant's desire for gossip was suddenly fired up. These roses were just flown in this morning. They're very fresh, so they'll last for a few more days. Is this wrapping paper okay with you? Lately, this type of vintage wrapping is on trend. If you like it, I'll wrap it up using this, okay? Sure, it looks great, the man nodded. Hearing the man say, "looks great," while looking at her, the little shop assistant blushed furiously, even though she knew he was referring to the wrapping. After hesitating for a long time, she finally couldn't resist any longer and asked curiously, "Sir, is this for your girlfriend?" The man shook his head. "No, it's not." The little shop assistant was surprised. "Not for your girlfriend?" "It's not for his girlfriend? Then it must be for a girl you fancy, right?" The little shop assistant speculated. She was even more curious as she mumbled, "The girl must be super beautiful since even a handsome man like you has to chase her." When the man heard that, he seemed to suddenly have a thought as the corners of his lips curled upwards. "That's right, she's indeed a beauty." The little shop assistant's eyes lit up instantly. "I was right." The little shop assistant was green with envy as she tried picturing how beautiful the girl looked when the man interrupted her thoughts. "But she's not the girl I fancy." The little shop assistant was slightly stupefied. "Then she is?" "My boyfriend," the man replied. The little shop assistant. What did I just hear? Boyfriend? The little shop assistant who was wrapping the bouquet suddenly stood there dumbfounded as if she just got struck by lightning. After at least 10 seconds had passed, the little shop assistant regained her senses from the shock. This exceedingly good-looking man in front of me actually swings that way? The little shop assistant's teenage heart was a little shattered. The little shop assistant stitched her teenage heart back together with great difficulty and realized her reaction was too obvious and hurriedly apologized. Sorry. I forgot my manners." "It's fine," Yuanwan laughed, not taking it to heart. When the little shop assistant saw the smile on his face, her heart palpitated with more eagerness. The heart she just put together shattered once again. Why do all the good-looking men have a boyfriend already? After Yuanwan left the florist, she called Sue. "Hello, housekeeper Sue. Is Ninth Master at Jean Garden or in the office?" "Office. He's having a meeting. Does he have anything on tonight?" "There's nothing scheduled on his itinerary." "Then is it a convenient time for me to go over to see him now?" Yi Wanwan asked. "That. Ms. Yi, please hold on. I'll check with Ninth Master." Sui was slightly taken aback by Yi Wanwan's words. After all, this was the first time Yi Wanwan took the initiative to ask for Ninth Master voluntarily. As she hated her relationship with Ninth Master being known, she never appeared in public with him. Shortly after, Sui returned to the call. "Ms. Yi, you may come over. Just let the secretary know your name." "All right, thanks." At the C Corporation. "Hello. May I have your name, please? Do you have an appointment?" People who visited the company were mostly businessmen, so when a fresh and handsome young man appeared before her with a big bouquet of red roses in his hand, the female secretary's eyes couldn't refrain from sparkling. "My surname's Yi. I'm looking for Chairman C. I made an appointment with Mr. Su earlier," Yuanwan replied. "So you're Mr. Yi." The little secretary had just been informed of this appointment by Su Yi, so she quickly got up invitingly, but she felt somewhat doubtful in her heart. Didn't Special Assistant Su say it was a girl? He was probably too busy and made a mistake. But judging by the looks of the man, he didn't seem like he was there to talk business. Rather, he looked like a boyfriend picking up his girlfriend from work. If such a handsome boyfriend waited for me with a bouquet of roses. At that moment, there was a ding, and the elevator door opened. The female secretary retracted her gaze from this man's stunning face and recovered her professionalism before speaking. "Mr. Yi, Chairman C is having a meeting now. I'll have to trouble you to wait in the guest room." Yi Wanwan nodded. "Sure." Miss Secretary was about to lead him to the guest room. Alas, the two of them merely walked a couple of steps when they saw a group of people walking out of the meeting room. Heading towards them was their boss, dressed in a full black Western suit with a cold and rigid face. Following behind was senior management. Everyone had a solemn expression. Si Han's body was turned sideways, listening to Suyi's report, but he realized that his own subordinate stopped speaking all of a sudden. The man furrowed his brows and looked at Suyi. Then he noticed that Suyi was staring at something ahead with the life drained out of his face. Si Han followed Suyi's gaze, but all he saw was the female secretary standing there, and beside her was seeing the young man with a bouquet of red roses in his hands next to the secretary. Si Han's pupils constricted instantly. As their boss suddenly stopped in his tracks, the senior management following behind him stopped too and took note of the scene before them at the same time. Under all these stares, the teenager, dressed in a white-collared shirt who looked as clear as the morning dew and was holding a bouquet of red roses in his hand, started walking in their direction one step at a time. The teenager paused right in front of Si Han. He had lips that were even more tender and lovelier than the roses. His twinkling eyes were slightly covered by his flax-colored hair and invited the smiles of everyone present as his melodious voice flowed smoothly. Chairman Si, may I have the honor of inviting you for dinner? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The group of senior management. Little secretary. In the dead silence, there seemed to be the rustling of a cold wind blowing. Did there, boss, just get hit on by a guy? Su-yi, who was standing right next to Si Han, nearly spewed blood out of his mouth when he saw Yi Wanwan dressed as a man. Although he already knew Yi Wanwan was going to disguise herself as a man, he never expected this woman would actually go to this extent. It was still that stunningly beautiful face. Only her makeup, hairstyle, and style of dress switched. The feeling she exuded completely changed, but it didn't look out of sorts at all. The female version of Yi Wanwan was beautiful, but she had a weak, repressed, and even ethereal kind of beauty, while the male version of Yi Wanwan gave off confidence and sharpness as if her power poured out in magnificent torrents. Anyway, her gender had nothing to do with her attractiveness. Of course, all this is beside the main point. The main point is that you're here dressed as a man, so in everyone's eyes, you're a man. As a man, how could you hold a bouquet of flowers and say such things to another man? He didn't need to think to find out what these people were thinking about. This woman, Yi Wanwan, has gone too far this time. Master would never agree to this. He would never agree. He might even lock her back up. As Sui had that thought in his head, he saw that his icy cold master with frost on his face looking at the teenager with indifferent eyes, but then he took the roses from the teenager's hand, expressionless. Sui, mother, what did I just see? Master, are you nuts? When Sui saw his own master accepting those flaming red roses from Yi Wanwan's hands, it felt as if his heart had gone through a tsunami. Suddenly, a loud bang resounded. It came from the head of finance behind him, who just dropped the huge stack of financial reports on the floor. Even that little secretary who brought Yi Wanwan and had her eyes opened so wide that her eyeballs were nearly falling out. Master, I didn't know you swing that way. Even the last king Yu of Zhou didn't tease his nobles like that. How do you expect me to clean this mess up for you? A certain someone who was almost breaking down racked his brains to think of how to deal with the aftermath for his master. He quickly turned to every shocked person to explain. Cough, cough, this is a friend of boss, an ethnic Chinese from country M. He grew up overseas, so he's more open and likes to joke around. Ha ha ha. Everyone turned to look at each other. Is that so? There's actually a person who dares to joke around like that in front of boss? Yi Wanwan actually had the mind to take a little revenge on Si Han, but didn't expect that he would really accept her flowers in front of everybody. Even she was quite surprised. However, she couldn't deny that the contrasting image of Si Han's glacial face that would never melt in 10,000 years and a bouquet of red roses bright as blood in his hands was indeed quite dazzling. What? Seeing that Yi Wanwan kept staring at him, Si Han shot a questioning gaze over. Yi Wanwan regained her senses from the lovely feast before her, but her eyes didn't leave Si Han's body as she muttered, "Nothing. I got drunk while admiring the beautiful flowers. Just lost my senses for a bit." But everyone saw that her eyes were glued on Si Han and not the flowers. Everybody at the scene. After leaving the company building, Yi Wanwan's wild, ruthless, tyrannical, and cool behavior abruptly disappeared like a punctured balloon. Baby, can we come to an agreement? Yi Wanwan probed. Si Han's bony fingers lightly brushed against the dewdrops on the red petals of the bouquet in his arms. Agreement about what? Yi Wanwan replied meekly. Agree about whether we could go out another day instead? As expected, Si Han's expression immediately turned cold. Yi Wanwan quickly explained, it's not that I want to flake out on you. At first, I was prepared to treat you to a romantic candlelight dinner, but I just remembered that I used the last of my savings on this bouquet. Truly, Zwangbility leads to liability. Upon hearing that she used the last of her savings to buy that bouquet, Si Han's face warmed up slightly. Yi Wanwan seemed to be deep in thought as her eyes glistened. She continued, but if you're willing to treat me, then we can go ahead, or if you could just pass me the money directly, that'd be even better. Si Han, go home. Yi Wanwan, baby, you won't be able to woo any girls with your EQ. At this point, isn't the right action supposed to be throwing his credit card at her and allowing her to spend it any way she wants? Si Han could probably guess what she was thinking as he glanced sideways at her and replied indifferently, a man turns evil when he's rich. Yi Wanwan had black lines all over her head. She thought her acting was already top-notch. It seemed like there was someone else whose acting skills were even better than hers. The great devil is indeed the great devil. His taste is unwavering. He still accepts me even when I'm dressed like a man. Nighttime at a certain high-class apartment. This was the dormitory that Worldwide Entertainment arranged for their employees. As the addresses of many of Han Xianyu's properties had been leaked, reporters surrounded every one of them, so he had to move here. At this moment, the lights in the house were all switched off. The huge living room was chilly, and the only sound came from the television. Han Xianyu sat on the sofa in front of the TV. Under the slight glow from the screen, his handsome face looked sickly pale. The TV had entertainment news on, and in the background was his villa where he used to live. The entrance was packed with a raging group of people, with a female reporter reporting at the scene. The court session for the case of Han Xianyu sexually harassing a little girl will begin in the next few days. As this case is very disturbing, it has received the attention of countless civilians. The father of the victimized girl stated that he would hold a press conference in 2 days' time to provide more details about the case. Where we're at now is Han Xianyu's current residence, but the door has been tightly shut this whole time, and Worldwide Entertainment, including Han Xianyu himself, have not made any positive responses to this incident. We learned from the girl's father that Han Xianyu contacted him privately to bribe him with money so that he would withdraw his lawsuit and lie to the press. However, the girl's father refused. The fall of an outstanding idol to a pedophile who refuses to admit to his heinous crime. A truth like this is really distressing. The manager, Fei Yang, brought some pills and a cup of water and looked over at Han Xianyu nervously. He reminded him, Xianyu, don't watch all this news. Have you forgotten what the doctor told you? You have to stay home and rest now, and don't watch or listen to anything. I'll update you if anything comes up. Ever since the incident happened, Han Xianyu's psychological health had been deteriorating, and Fei Yang couldn't stop worrying about him. After all, this incident not only affected his career and life, but it also had an impact on his mental state. Han Xianyu helped those kids out of kindness, yet he was slandered and framed. He didn't commit any crimes, yet he had lived with that infamy for the rest of his life. This was all while that greedy couple kept gnawing at his flesh and winning the sympathy of all of society. In the future, they would, without a doubt, rely on that exorbitant compensation to live lavishly. If it wasn't for the young man who appeared today, the company would force Xianyu to settle this matter privately. If that really happened, he couldn't predict whether Xianyu would still be able to hang on or not. Seeing that Han Xianyu was silent, Fei Yang comforted him. Don't be so down. Didn't Chairman Chu agree to give that kid a try? Maybe there will really be a turn of events? If that Yi Bai didn't have a solution, I doubt he'd dare to speak so boldly during the meeting. Fei Yang didn't dare to imagine what would happen if Yi Bai failed. Or, what if that person has some ill intentions? Upon hearing the name Yi Bai, Han Xianyu's pupils finally moved a little and a warm smile emerged in his dim eyes. After a moment of silence, he closed his eyes slowly and shut off the limitless vortex in his eyes. 2 days later, Mr. and Mrs. Zhao gathered all the various publications, and the Crusade Congress convened as scheduled. They even had a live telecast. They already sued him, yet they're still having a press conference before the court session. Isn't this the same as establishing a private court session? Lest Han Xianyu's mood be affected, Fei Yang cut the television and internet cable and even confiscated Han Xianyu's cell. Just as he was thinking there weren't any loopholes, Han Xianyu's personal phone suddenly rang. The caller ID indicated Yi Bai. Seeing this name, Fei Yang hurriedly answered the call and said cautiously, "Hello, Mr. Yi?" "Turn on the live telecast." The caller didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Fei Yang was somewhat taken aback by that request. "Right now?" "Yi Bai, yes." Fei Yang hesitated for a second before replying. "All right, got it." Fei Yang quickly turned on the live telecast on his computer and knocked on Han Xianyu's bedroom door. Xianyu, are you awake?" After he pushed the door open and entered, there was an overpowering stench of alcohol as usual. Han Xianyu was lying on the floor, and next to him was an overturned bottle of wine. He didn't even respond when Fei Yang called him. Seeing him in this state, Fei Yang was both angry and heartbroken, but he knew that if he didn't allow Han Xianyu to vent his anger, he might really go crazy, so Fei Yang didn't stop him. "Get up quick, Mr. Yi just called. He wants us to watch the press conference." At the same time in Imperial City's Grand Hotel, the hotel's biggest multifunctional conference hall was packed with hundreds of reporters from various media outlets, and the girl's father, Zhao Diyong, and her mother, Li Qiaohong, were both seated on stage. Zhao Diyong had a slightly plump figure, very short hair, and was wearing an old black suit which didn't fit him very well. He said in a grave tone, "We would like to express our gratitude to the media for lending a hand to our family. Han Xianyu's a superstar. He's rich and powerful, so it's not easy for ordinary people like us to get justice. Thankfully, there are still many kind souls around to provide me and my wife with an outlet to speak up, otherwise, we wouldn't know what to do." Li Qiaohong, who was seated next to him, had slightly greasy hair and wore an old gray dress. She looked very distressed and kept lowering her head to wipe her tears. "I really didn't expect that Han Xianyu was that kind of person. I actually personally delivered my daughter into the hands of that bastard." Both of them were just ordinary people at the lowest rung of society. They lived poorly, led tough lives, yet this happened to them. When they first appeared in the media, many expressed sympathy for what they went through, and naturally, many more people cursed Han Xianyu. In the apartment, Fei Yang watched as the couple shamelessly pretended to be pitiful. He was on the verge of exploding in anger. He couldn't imagine how Han Xianyu felt from watching this scene. "Xianyu, are you all right?" Fei Yang asked worriedly. Han Xianyu stared at the couple on the screen in silence, then a flicker of recognition came over him as his expression changed. "It's him?" "Who?" Fei Yang didn't understand, and he looked towards Han Xianyu's line of sight. Then he saw a familiar figure in the press conference. The man seated next to the reporter from Mars Weekly looked like Yi Bai. He's there too? What is this Yi Bai planning to do? Under such circumstances, with such a strong public opinion, it was near impossible to turn the situation around. If he wanted to prove Han Xianyu's innocence at such an occasion, it would only worsen Han Xianyu's case. Fei Yang furrowed his brows and felt completely uneasy. On the live telecast, the first person to speak was the lanky reporter from Southeast Daily whom Han Xianyu had beaten up, Yin Zhengyang. The majority of breaking news from this incident was reported by the Southeast Daily. Also, they were responsible for initiating and organizing this press conference. Riding on the popularity of this story, Southeast Daily received instant fame and fortune in the industry and was lauded for practicing media ethics. Before the reporters could ask any questions, Yin Zhengyang gave an overview of the sequence of events using a slideshow. I believe most of you have seen this photo of Han Xianyu in the bedroom with many little girls and have seen him even lying in bed with them. And it was because of this photo that I got beaten up by Han Xianyu when I went up to him for an interview. When a celebrity acts like that, I have reasons to suspect that aside from psychological issues, he must have a violent nature as well. Exactly. How could he just beat a person up? Must have hit him at his weak spot, huh? It's hard to imagine what kind of treatment the children get at his place. Yan Zhongyang's words had the support of those watching the live telecast, especially the media. They abhorred acts of violence against reporters. Yan Zhongyang continued, after this incident has gone public, the dirty deeds behind Han Xianyu's charitable acts slowly surfaced, ranging from the recorded allegations from the victim herself to the nude photos and the story leaked by the ex-employee who worked at his villa, not to mention his ex-girlfriend who revealed his secret addiction. With all this evidence, Han Xianyu's fans are still making a futile attempt to wash his name clean, still trying in vain to find a loophole in the law. It's sickening. Yan Zhongyang ended his righteous speech, took the microphone and pointed it towards the girl's father and said, Mr. Zhao, Mrs. Zhao, I understand how the both of you are feeling right now, and I really don't want you to recall those painful memories. But in order to let the criminal get the punishment he deserves and for justice to be served, I hope you can give us a detailed account of the incident and let the truth be known to the public. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. All right. Zhao Diyong took a deep breath and began to talk about the chronological sequence of events. He mentioned how he noticed that his daughter was acting strange when he arrived home one day, and how he found out his daughter had been sexually assaulted by Han Xianyu for a long time after having a heart-to-heart talk with her. After speaking, Zhao Diyong played the recording of the conversation he had with his daughter. He touched me. Where did he touch? He touched my chest. And Li Qiaohong started pounding her chest and crying out loudly halfway through the recording. My daughter, my poor girl, my only baby daughter. How is she going to continue living? Her whole life is destroyed by the hands of that bastard. Zhao Diyong clenched his fists. It's my fault. As her father, I didn't perform my duty as a father. I'm so useless. I can't even protect her and even made her go through such a horrible thing. That man is the scum of society. He won't even let a child off. He's an inhumane bastard. It's not enough to even sentence him to death. The raging expression of the father, the sorrowful cries from the mother, and the unbearable recording instantly propelled the angry emotions in the room to the max. The comments from the people watching the live telecast also flooded through. Is Han Xianyu even human? He won't even let a child off. I already knew the entertainment industry is messy, but I didn't expect it to be this messy. Han Xianyu's 10,000 times more nauseating than people who secretly live off a rich man or cheaters who sleep around. He's more than just nauseating. Those people are probably just immoral, but he's inhumane. He hadn't even offered an apology to date. He's too cold-blooded. Pervert. Scum. I can't believe I actually idolized a person like him before. He should be castrated. His entire family should die. Curse his daughter. I hope she'll be XX by someone as well next time. Fei Yang read those malicious comments, and his expression turned ugly. Xianyu, why don't we turn it off? Fei Yang's voice trailed off while he paid attention to something at the corner of the screen. He saw a man in a white-collared top supporting his head with his hand and looking at the enraged crowd before him with an indifferent expression. He didn't seem to have any intention of doing anything. Just when he was worried that Xianyu couldn't take it any longer and was about to turn the live telecast off, the teenager suddenly turned his head and said something to the reporter from Mars Weekly. The reporter listened attentively with his body tilted, and then his eyes glistened as he nodded. After that, the Mars Weekly reporter, Gao Feng, suddenly stood up and exclaimed, "We have the testimony from the witness and irrefutable proof presented. Yet Han Xianyu still refuses to plead guilty. He's insane. It's because of people like him that the entertainment industry is so messy." Mars Weekly was known to be swift in getting news out. They published many explosive tabloids and was very famous in the industry. But in recent years, they were getting from bad to worse. They even copied the news that other publications had published regarding Han Xianyu's case. On stage, Yin Zhengyang saw Gao Feng stand up to speak and a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. What #1 correspondent in China? He's just a paparazzi who's past his prime. It's my home ground turf. Yet he's still trying to steal the limelight? Gao Feng first roared indignantly, then turned to Zhao Diyong on stage and spoke with humility. Mr. Zhao, I'm Gao Feng from Mars Weekly. I'm very sorry for what you've been through. May I ask you a few questions? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Seeing that Gao Feng was condemning Han Xianyu just like the other reporters, a hint of contentment flashed in Zhao Diyong's eyes as he spoke in deep pain. Mr. Reporter, please go ahead. Gao Feng nodded. Thank you. Before I pose my question, I would like Mr. Zhao and all the reporters seated here today to watch a clip. After speaking, Gao Feng walked to the projector by the side and got the staff to insert the thumb drive he had with him. When Zhao Diyong and the audience heard that, they instinctively turned towards the enormous screen in the multifunction hall. An upbeat song started playing first, then a little girl around the age of 5 appeared on the screen. The little girl was dressed in a black leather crop top and miniskirt. She was imitating the dance moves of a very popular superstar from Country H. The dance moves were very mature, but the little Lolita gave a completely different feel to them. It was Mo and cute. Her moves were exactly in sync with the superstar. After the clip played, Gao Feng turned to Zhao Diyong and asked, Mr. Zhao, after watching this clip, what do you think about it? Zhao Diyong wasn't sure why Gao Feng suddenly showed them this clip of the little girl dancing, so he replied truthfully, very cute. What about the reporters? What do all of you think? Gao Feng looked towards the reporters and asked again. The reporters who watched the clip found it unbearably Mo and talked about it amongst themselves. Oh God, that's too Mo and cute. She replicates those dance moves so well, dancing like that at such a young age. She's very talented. I've seen this clip before. The clip of this little girl dancing went viral a few years back. She's amazing. This girl should be around 10 years old by now. The audience watching the live telecast also expressed that they were mesmerized by the cuteness of the little Lolita in the clip. While everyone talked about the video, they also looked at Gao Feng suspiciously, unsure of his intention behind playing that clip during the press conference. After knowing what the audience thought about the video, he nodded and pressed a button on the projector. All right, then can I get everyone to look at these screenshots? In the next second, a few screenshots from Weibo appeared on the screen. The date on the screenshots indicated they were from 7 years ago. A very popular blogger reposted the clip of this little girl dancing, and the blogger's reaction was just like that of the reporters. All the comments below the post talked about how cute the little girl was. However, when they reached the final slide of the screenshots, a nasty comment appeared. So flirty, I really want to fuck her. How much for a night? When this comment was presented on the big screen, there was a second of dead silence in the audience, and then a major uproar exploded. Damn, who's this person? A pervert? How could he say something like that about a 5-year-old child? Even if it's online, he shouldn't speak so recklessly, right? That's too gross. This pervert is probably a pedophile too, right? In the screenshots, Gao Feng censored all the Weibo IDs that appeared on the screenshots, this ID included. Everyone scolded the person up to this point, and gradually, some people started to speculate about the identity of the pervert. Damn, the perverted netizen in this screenshot isn't Han Xianyu, is it? It must be him. This dummy account was dug out by Mars Weekly, right? I just said that Mars Weekly doesn't seem to be doing well these last few years, but it seems they still have some potential. This is the first time someone dug out Han Xianyu's dummy account. When the reporters saw this new information they could work with, they started getting excited. At the same time, in the apartment, Fei Yang, who was monitoring the live telecast, was waiting for a turn of events, but instead, what he saw was the situation becoming dramatically worse. He was on the verge of going crazy. What dog shit dummy account? Are these reporters nuts? What's going on? Isn't this reporter from Mars Weekly the person Yi Bai had an arrangement with? Han Xianyu leaned against the bedside and stared at the screen. He still had that haggard and stoned expression, and on his face, there was numbness and emptiness. At that moment, the live telecast website was also flooded with comments. Wow, this is explosive. Han Xianyu's dummy account is exposed. He must have other accounts aside from this. He's really disgusting. That little girl in the clip should be around 5 to 6 years old, almost the same age as the sick girl he sexually assaulted. Huh. The more you think about it, the scarier it gets. After getting the reaction he wanted, Gao Feng said in a grave tone, everyone has seen that when a normal person watches the video, they would find that the little girl is really adorable. Only a pedophile would have such dirty and malicious thoughts. Zhao Diyong saw this reporter bringing out another piece of evidence, and his eyes lit up. He immediately chimed in. That's right. Also, the date on Weibo indicated this was 7 years ago. Han Xianyu has been in hiding for so long that we don't even know how many innocent children he's harmed. In the press conference, the man in a white-collared top skimmed through the comments on his phone and listened to the words of the media and Zhao Diyong. His lips subtly curled upwards. The prey has entered the trap. On stage, Gao Feng looked towards the audience unmovingly, and his gaze swept across the entire hall, stopping at Zhao Diyong, who had a look of surprise. He raised his brows slightly and asked, Mr. Zhao, you think so too? You think this netizen is a pedophile? Zhao Diyong didn't hesitate and replied, of course, if he's not a pedophile, what is he? Others started murmuring amongst themselves as well. Do you still need to ask? If he isn't considered a pedophile, then what is a pedophile? Han Xianyu's name has been blackened forever. He won't be able to wash it clean forever, yeah? Gao Feng laughed and didn't respond, but he pressed a button on the projector. Then, everybody please take a look at who wrote this disgusting comment. Upon hearing what Gao Feng said, everybody held their breath and bolted upright in their seats. There must be many juicy contents made by Han Xianyu's dummy account, huh? On the big screen, the image was cropped and it was still the same screenshot, but this time, the mosaic sensor on the Weibo ID was gone and the netizen's ID appeared before everyone's eyes as clear as day. Lonely cigarette. So flirty. I really want to fuck her. How much for a night? And Lonely Cigarette was actually the father of the victim who was sexually assaulted, Zhao Diyong. After all the reporters saw that extremely familiar ID, the entire hall fell into a terrible, dead silence. The hiddle smile Zhao Diyong had initially suddenly stiffened. There were disbelief and rage on his face at first, and then he seemed to remember something as a look of panic and fear swept across his face. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After a very long silence, there was an upheaval in the hall. Wah damn. This, how could it be? This isn't Han Xianyu's Weibo account, but Zhao Diyong's? Is it real? Is this picture photoshopped? How could Mr. Zhao say something like that? This is impossible. It must be fake. The calm and unperturbed Yin Zhengyang's face abruptly changed at this point. He quickly stood up and yelled in fury, Gao Feng, are you insane? You once held the title of being the #1 correspondent in China, yet you're neglecting your professional ethics and coming up with this fake news just because you can't get anything juicy? You're making a pig of yourself. Gao Feng looked coldly at Yin Zhengyang, reporter Yin. We're in the same profession. Don't you find what you just said really hilarious? What's the occasion today? There are so many reporter friends seated here today. Why would I lie about something that can be easily exposed? TSK, since this Weibo post was from 7 years ago, even Zhao Diyong himself probably forgot he said something so degrading, so he didn't destroy the evidence, huh? I've already shared the original Weibo post. Everyone can now see it for themselves. It's the third comment on page 7. Listening to what Yin Zhengyang said, the audience broke into discussion again. This news is coming from Mars Weekly. Although Mars Weekly isn't doing very well now, they never leaked any false information before. That's why they offended so many celebrities and almost collapsed from all the attacks. Even a small publication would never dare to use a fake picture to mislead everyone in front of so many reporters. Damn, I found it. I found it. It's true. It was really posted by Zhao Yong. Hurry, go take a look. All the reporters present, including those watching the live telecast, quickly opened the Weibo post that Gao Feng shared a few seconds ago and really saw Zhao Yong's comment on page 7. At the same time, Gao Feng connected the projector to his phone using Bluetooth and displayed Zhao Yong's comment on the big screen and how he argued with other netizens. So flirty. I really want to fuck her. How much a night? To the netizen above, you're a pervert, huh? How could you say such a thing? Hee hee, what did I do? This little shit is dressed like that and dancing so erotically. Don't you think she's trying to get people to fuck her? Go fuck your father, bastard. I want to fuck your display picture. Is she your daughter? She looks like she would like to be fucked. I'll fuck your mother. Damn it. Where do you live, bastard? Post your address here if you have the guts. IXXXX. Gao Feng casually looked at the awfully pale Zhao Yong on stage. What do you think? Mr. Zhao, have you managed to recall all these comments you made? Zhao Yong held his phone with trembling fingers, cold sweat trickling down his forehead. He anxiously tapped on his phone. Gao Feng sneered. You're trying to delete your Weibo now? I'm afraid it's too late. Zhao Yong stopped what he was doing and knew it was probably useless. There was fear on his face, but then he held his composure and stood up to speak. This happened so many years ago. I didn't mean what I said back then. It can't prove anything. Gao Feng seemed to have anticipated his reply, so he said, Mr. Zhao, that wasn't what you said just now, was it? Everyone here heard you admit that a person who could say something like that must be a pedophile. Now you're saying it can't prove anything? Aren't you slapping your own mouth? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After speaking, Gao Feng discreetly took a glimpse at a certain corner of the room and continued to put up 5 to 6 photos. All of them were different comments posted by Zhao Yong using different usernames, and they were all unbearable to read. There were some from 3 to 5 years ago, a couple from 1 year ago, and one which was very recent. The most recent one was him requesting to have sex with a young girl on a certain website. This account was verified and was, without a doubt, Zhao Yong's. Each time a new photo flashed onto the big screen, Zhao Yong's expression turned a shade paler. At the last photo, he was frozen stiff in his chair. How could it be? How exactly did this person manage to do this? He actually dug out all those posts from so many years back, even those I don't have any recollection of. He wasn't a perverted pedophile at heart. Those comments and the request he made to that young girl were just his way of thrill-seeking, but after these messages were exposed, there was nothing he could say to clear his name. As expected, after looking at all this evidence, all the reporters at the scene were completely dumbfounded, and the audience at the live telecast exploded into chatter. Oh my God. What did I just see? Zhao Yong's a pedophile too? And look at all this stuff he said online. It's disgusting. How was he even able to criticize Han Xianyu with so much self-righteousness? This is simply unbelievable. At this moment, Yin Zhengyang was at a complete loss. He never expected that Zhao Yong would have evidence that could be used against him. No way. I can't let things go on this way. Even if Zhao Yong's a pedophile, Han Xianyu's charges are still undeniable. I have to draw the public's attention back to the real issue at hand. Yin Zhengyang immediately stood up, took the microphone, and was about to speak. Everyone. However, just at that moment, Gao Feng immediately interrupted Yin Zhengyang and exclaimed in anger, just as everyone has seen, it's true. Zhao Yong's a pedophile through and through. He's the scum of the society, as he said himself. An inhumane bastard. A pervert that should be shot in the head. Yin Zhengyang, let's not talk about whether Zhao Yong's a pedophile first. Han Xianyu, Gao Feng's rage seemed to have reached its limit. He slammed the table and interrupted Yin Zhengyang once again. With a frightening glare, he said, also, according to what I investigated, there's more to this than meets the eye. Zhao Yong, this inhumane bastard. He's not only a perverted pedophile, He, he won't even let his own daughter off. Following Gao Feng's fuming howl that reverberated across the entire hall, the stunned audience sat there in utter disbelief. Even Yin Zhengyang had forgotten what he wanted to say and was flabbergasted. What? Zhao Diyong didn't even let his own daughter off? Oh my God. On the live telecast website, after the pause, there was a crazy barrage of comments that covered the entire screen. Nobody cared about what Yin Zhengyang had to say. Everyone's attention was now on the shocking truth Gao Feng disclosed. After the initially calm and composed Zhao Diyong heard that, he was stupefied and suddenly started yelling as he stood up, "You damn mother venomous slanderer! I would fuck your father. Are you crazy? That's my own daughter. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." Yin Zhengyang, who was interrupted countless times, was made totally speechless by the explosive news Gao Feng revealed. After a few seconds, he quickly regained his senses and shouted in Gao Feng's direction, "Great reporter Gao, we must show the evidence for whatever we say. With just your words, you're putting such a big accusation on someone. You have total disregard for his life. You're not a reporter but an executioner." Zhao Diyong also remembered this was a press conference. He calmed himself down and said, "This reporter here, do you have any evidence? How could you slander someone like that?" Gao Feng seemed prepared for their questions, and he mumbled, "TSK, you want evidence? Zhao Diyong, I guess you won't cry until you see the grave?" After Gao Feng had spoken, a photo appeared on the huge screen. In the photo, there was a little girl, and at her young age, her figure could barely be seen. She only had some panties and a little tank top on, looking like she just came out of the shower. She seemed very nervous in front of the camera. The person in the photo was Mr. and Mrs. Zhao's daughter, and that photo was circulated by Zhao Diyong himself to his circle of friends. He even added a caption along with it. "What do you think about my daughter?" and included a smirk emoticon. When this photo appeared, all the reporters at the scene felt so bad for the child. Oh gosh, he's really a monster. He didn't even let his own daughter off. How could he do that? Girls at that age already have extreme self-consciousness, okay? As her father, he actually circulated such a revealing photo of his own daughter to his friends. Utterly disgusting. How can a person like him be fit to be a father? When Zhao Diyong saw that everyone presumed this photo to be the evidence that he sexually abused his own daughter, his face turned red in anger and immediately burst out, "This was just a normal day with my daughter." Gao Feng sneered, "Tisk, you're calling this revealing photo normal? You're still trying to deny it even with all this evidence in your face, huh? No problem. It's fine if you don't admit it. I have a witness. Today, I must thoroughly expose this bastard's true colors." Following Gao Feng's powerful and resonating rebuke, the press at the scene was ready with their equipment and waited for Gao Feng's next piece of evidence. Unknowingly, everyone was subconsciously following Gao Feng's line of thought. The day before yesterday, I interviewed Zhao Diyong's neighbor, and after getting permission from him, I recorded this interview. Gao Feng played a recording of the interview. In the video recording, Gao Feng was interviewing a man, and in order to protect the person's identity, the man's face was hidden in the shadows on purpose. Upon hearing that Gao Feng had interviewed his neighbor and seeing that familiar figure on screen, Zhao Diyong's face changed. But at this point, the interview already started. "Gao Feng, based on your impression, what kind of person is Zhao Diyong?" "Neighbor, he's always idling and doesn't do honest work." "Gao Feng, then, does he have any bad habits?" "Neighbor, does gambling count?" "Gao Feng, gambling? Is he really good at it?" "Neighbor, I heard he even gambled away the money that was supposed to be used for his daughter's medical bills. If it wasn't for that superstar's help, his daughter wouldn't be alive today. He's too lucky." "Gao Feng, what do you think about that incident about that superstar allegedly sexually assaulting your neighbor's daughter? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." Neighbor. Haha. The superstar sexually assaulting my neighbor's daughter? He's really trying to push the blame onto someone else. Not sure who's the one doing all these filthy deeds. Galfong, what do you mean? Neighbor. Why are you city people so innocent? It means that he's playing with his own daughter. Galfong. Your neighbor himself? Why would you say that? That's his own daughter. How could he do something like that? Do you have any proof? Neighbor. Proof? I'm living right next to him. How could I be unaware of anything that happens around here? The noises from his house every night. TSK. I'm not the only one who heard them. If you don't believe me, you can go around and ask the whole neighborhood. Galfong. What about the little girl's mother? Doesn't she care? Neighbor. His wife works the night shift, so there's only him and his daughter at home every night. But even when she's at home, she probably wouldn't care. Both husband and wife are black-hearted scum. Very soon, the 10-minute-long interview ended. There were still some interviews with other neighbors, and everyone said they often heard the cries of the little girl, along with Zhao Diyang's obscenities and curses. This interview revealed all the details. It was truly heart-wrenching. Nobody expected that this father, who blatantly said he wouldn't submit to force and would protect his daughter at all costs, was actually a filthy and despicable pedophile. He was so sick in the mind that he would do it to his own daughter. Zhao Diyang, what else do you have to say for yourself? Gao Feng asked in a stern tone. Hearing his neighbors calling him out and facing the interrogation from Gao Feng and all the disgusted gazes from the media around him, Zhao Diyang looked as if he was going insane. What evidence? You call this evidence? Zhao Changbin, that dog, has a grudge against me. That guy is deliberately trying to frame me. Mr. Zhao, there's no smoke without a fire. Furthermore, there's more than one neighbor who called you out. That's because my daughter was being disobedient. I was teaching her a lesson. As the saying goes, spare the rod, spoil the child. It's perfectly fine for parents to reprimand and punish their child when they misbehave. Oh, so your teaching method is to impose bodily harm and sexually abuse her, is it? Gao Feng pressed him hard. Zhao Diyang's face was completely red from fury, and he breathed heavily like a wild beast. Fuck. I already said that I didn't. I'm not a pedophile, nor did I sexually abuse my own daughter. Gao Feng's gaze became even colder, and he spoke with even more intensity. Haha, there's witnesses and evidence presented right in front of you, and you're still trying to deny it without feeling the slightest remorse for your actions. You're utterly devoid of a conscience. Touching her private parts, forcing her to give oral sex, they're actually the things you made your daughter do, right? Fuck your father. You garbage reporter. Have you said enough? Finally, Zhao Diyang couldn't hold it in anymore as he kicked the chair behind him and charged towards Gao Feng, delivering a punch to his face. Gao Feng was solidly punched in the face. Half his face immediately swelled up. Zhao Diyang wanted to continue beating him up when a few other reporters and security guards swiftly rushed over and quickly pulled the agitated Zhao Diyang away. Gao Feng wiped the blood from the corner of his lips and spoke bitterly. Does everyone believe me now? He's not just a pervert. He also has a violent temper. So you can imagine what kind of treatment his daughter had to endure under his hands. Upon hearing that, Zhao Diyang's face contorted in rage as he yelled crazily while trying to charge towards Gao Feng. I will kill you. I will kill you. Just you wait. You wait, liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Faced with all the evidence presented, Zhao Diyang was not only unremorseful for his actions, he even beat up a reporter at the scene, making everyone's anger skyrocket. The number of clicks and traffic on the live telecast also broke the record as comments flooded the telecast. One after another. Wow, my 3 views have totally toppled. This scumbag has been lying to us for such a long time. How perverted is he that he's able to do this to his own daughter? He actually called Han Xian you scum when he's the true bastard who's worse than a pig. Monster. After all the cursing, the netizens naturally started thinking from another perspective. Can we believe anything this utterly heartless and inhumane bastard says? Oh my God. Could it be that Han Xianyu was really framed? It's definitely possible. Damn. Our Xianyu is obviously framed from the start, alright? Just because they're weak and poor, all of you stood on their side without figuring out the truth first and refused to give others a chance to speak whenever we said something. You guys said we had brain damage. Now you know who the shameless ones are. Huh? Those who are poor must have a reason to sink to such lows. Han Xianyu helped their family, yet they turned around and framed Xianyu like that. If that reporter didn't expose Zhao Diyang's true colors, Xianyu would have carried this shame for the rest of his life. Our little feather waited for this day, waited for the truth to come to light. Xianyu's innocent. I knew Han Xianyu would never do something like that. Late at night in a certain high-class apartment, Fei Yang watched as Gao Feng slowly exposed the true colors of Zhao Diyong. He saw that the media and audience on the live telecast all scolded Zhao Diyong, and many of them started doubting Zhao Diyong's words. The grievances Han Xianyu bore instantly reversed due to this situation. It was totally unexpected. Fei Yang was so stirred up that he almost hugged his laptop and cried. Xianyu, are you seeing this? Public opinion is starting to shift. It's really starting to shift. That Mr. Yi is really something, huh? Our worldwide sent people to monitor that bastard, Zhao Diyong. Yet they could only dig out useless information about him gambling, drinking, and abusing his wife and child. How exactly did Yi Bai find out Zhao Diyong's a pedophile? Han Xianyu stared at the screen and watched as the angry comments came one after another, cursing Zhao Diyong. He slowly leaned against the backrest of his chair and closed his eyes, not saying a single word. Fei Yang still scolded the pervert in agitation. This bastard, Zhao Diyong. I thought he was just greedy and ungrateful. Who knew he's far more disgusting than that? He's the true pedophile. What's worse is this scumbag didn't even let his own daughter off. Hearing his manager swearing nonstop, Han Xianyu slowly opened his eyes and glanced at him. Yangji, you really think Zhao Diyong's a pedophile? Suddenly hearing Han Xianyu posing this question to him, Fei Yang was confused. Isn't he? With all this evidence, how could it not be true? Han Xianyu replied coldly, on the surface, there's indeed a lot of evidence, but if you looked at all of them separately and judged them from the perspective of the law, do you still think the evidence is tenable? Fei Yang calmed down and carefully thought through Han Xianyu's reasoning. Now that you mention it, it seems true. When you look at all the evidence separately, there really isn't anything substantial. For example, that comment Zhao Diyong posted under that video clip, it's not strange for someone as uncultured as him to say something like that. Even if you gather all the evidence from his social media accounts together, you can only prove that he has a tendency towards pedophilia and poor character. If you looked only at the picture of his daughter that he sent, it could be considered as simply showing off his daughter. Just like that photo of you lying in bed with those kids, it's a very normal photo if you looked at it alone. As for the statements from the witnesses, it's quite possible that those people held a grudge against him. All they can prove is that he's abusive when he's drunk. Zhao Diyong's neighbors were just like your ex-girlfriend. Their words seemed very believable to the public. With that said, Fei Yang suddenly realized something as he sat there in a daze. Could it be that Zhao Diyong's not a... Han Xianyu spoke softly. It doesn't matter whether he is or not. Hearing Han Xianyu's words, Fei Yang's heart sunk. You're right. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is whether he's guilty in the eyes of the public. Fei Yang stared closely at the live telecast of the media leaving the hall and tried to make sense of the entire situation. Yi Bai purposely found someone outside Worldwide Entertainment to expose this man because if someone from Worldwide tried to intervene, nobody would believe that person no matter what he said, due to bias. Worldwide did accuse Zhao Diyong of drinking, gambling, and beating his wife and daughter before, but everyone thought Worldwide was just trying to smear Zhao Diyong's name in order to prove your innocence. So instead, Yi Bai worked with Mars Weekly, which was already well established in the industry. He arranged for Gao Feng not to reveal that the comment was posted by Zhao Diyong at first, and allowed everyone to speculate and misunderstand before revealing the truth. dropping the bomb on everyone. After destroying Zhao Diyong's fatherly image and exposing his character, everything Gao Feng said afterwards would be more believable to the media. Following that, everything from the photo of his daughter to all those so-called pieces of evidence, and finally agitating Zhao Diyong to the point where he beat up a reporter, these were exactly the same things the media did to you. This Yi Bai, he's totally just. Han Xianyu sighed deeply and completed Fei Yang's sentence, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Yi Bai choreographed this entire thing and was simply copying how Zhao Diyong used the media against Han Xianyu, returning everything Han Xianyu went through back to Zhao Diyong. Not only that, Yi Bai's plan was flawless. Even Fei Yang, who worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, couldn't tell, much less those reporters and civilians present today. Since Han Xianyu himself had gone through all this before, he was able to see through Yi Bai's plan. Han Xianyu stared at the retreating figure in the live telecast, and an inexplicable feeling bubbled in his chest. He really didn't expect that. Not only did that man pull it off, he even chose to use this method to prove his innocence. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. As Zhao Diyong was emotionally unstable, the press conference was forced to end there. The entrance of Imperial City Grand Hotel was swarmed with reporters, and Mr. and Mrs. Zhao had trouble even taking a single step forward. Mr. Zhao, as for the incident of you sexually assaulting your own daughter, do you have anything to say? Mrs. Zhao, did you know about it? Aside from your daughter, did you do it to any other children? The blinding lights all around them with crazy reporters asking all kinds of accusatory questions, along with a pushing crowd made Zhao Diyong quite dizzy. He knocked over quite a number of cameras. Li Qiaohong just kept saying that she didn't know anything and that she had no idea. Hearing all these ridiculous questions, Zhao Diyong was so mad that his lungs were on the verge of exploding. Nonsense. Slander. It's just slander. That reporter was slandering me. I'm not a pedophile, and would never do such things to my own daughter. Are all of you reporters insane? How could you believe such things? Then how do you explain those comments you posted online? Aren't you the one who said such disgusting things to a 5-year-old child and even threatened to violate a netizen's daughter? I spoke without thinking. I didn't actually do it. What about the statements from your neighbors? How do you explain them? That guy has a grudge against me and was trying to frame me. I've already explained it over 100 times. How many times do you want me to explain it? It's possible you could have a grudge with one neighbor, but what about all the other neighbors? There's irrefutable evidence here, and you're still trying to deny it? Fuck. Nothing to say. Huh? You kept saying that Han Xianyu sexually abused your daughter under the guise of his charitable acts, but truth is, you're the one trying to sell your daughter to him, right? I'll sell your father. Then are you framing Han Xianyu for the sake of money? The media was frantically questioning Zhao Diyong when they were suddenly distracted by something else. They quickly scrambled off in another direction. It was Gao Feng coming out of the hotel. Reporter Gao, did you doubt Zhao Diyong from the beginning? I was just making a logical conjecture from the information presented to me. Then, Reporter Gao, may I know what's your opinion on the drastic turn of events? Gao Feng glanced at Yin Jingyang, whose face was very ugly at this moment, and replied leisurely, look beneath the surface and reveal the truth to the public. I was just doing what I had to. I believe the truth will always prevail. Upon hearing Gao Feng's mockery, Yin Zhengyang nearly spit out blood in his rage. All this time, he had been trying to redress an injustice done to Zhao Diyong and was supposed to be the righteous hero, but after what Gao Feng did, his reputation was gone and he became the accomplice harboring that bastard, Zhao Diyong. Yin Zhengyang watched as everything unfolded and tried to find a chance to interrupt, wanting to explain and reverse the situation, to rebuke the absurd and untenable evidence Gao Feng had given. However, not a single person cared about him. Everyone's attention was on the extremely explosive news of a father who sexually assaulted his own daughter. After all, compared to the old news of Han Xianyu sexually assaulting this little girl, the shocking turn of events that the girl's father, who planned to sue Han Xianyu, was actually a pedophile was much more attractive. The media knew very well which news would attract the most attention. He just couldn't understand how things turned this messy when he literally had everything under control before. All this happened through this Mars Weekly, a media outlet about to close down? Or is there someone orchestrating all this behind the scenes? Just exactly who's so powerful that he designed a strategy like this? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. This bastard. He deserves it. What he's going through now can't be compared to what you went through. Let him have a taste of cyber violence. Fei Yang was done ranting and started worrying again. Yibai said he would prove your innocence within 7 days, but according to the current trend, even though the public's opinion has started to shift and increasingly more people are voicing your grievances, what if that moron, Zhao Diyong, wants to continue fighting back? Even if we don't have to worry about the public's opinion anymore and have a solid chance at winning the case, this case is still bad for your name. In the entertainment industry, if the grass is merely trimmed, it'll grow again the next spring, which means that we have to remove the source of the problem. If we don't, it might be exposed and used against us again. After the press conference ended, public opinion shifted as expected. All the criticism and hate previously concentrated on Han Xian, you immediately shifted to Mr. and Mrs. Zhao. Reporters camped around the Zhao's residence. The couple couldn't even go to work and encountered the media and angry civilians everywhere they went. In just 2 short days, Zhao Diyong was fired and blacklisted by every company. His friends and relatives also avoided him like the plague. The media couldn't get to him, so they kept trying to dig up information about him from his family. Zhao Diyong didn't have a very pleasant character to start with, so everyone pushed him down even further. They might as well, since he was already going downhill. Almost everyone interviewed had nasty things to say about him. Li Xiaohong wasn't any better. From the viewpoint of the public, as the child's mother, how could she have no idea what her husband was doing? In their eyes, she assisted the tyrant in victimizing his daughter and colluded with him. At the Zhao's residence, there was clattering and banging in the house. The whole floor was a mess while the little girl hid in her bedroom, not making a sound. Li Xiaohong pulled her luggage in one hand and dragged her daughter in the other. She kept walking forward without looking back. Suddenly, Zhao Diyong grabbed her arm and yelled, "Why the hell are you leaving?" Li Xiaohong screamed, "Why? What else can I do? I want a divorce. I want to leave this place with my daughter. I can't live like this anymore." Zhao Diyong stared at her heavy under-eye bags and said with an ashen face, "Why are you making a fuss? We're swarmed with reporters now. Just wait a few more days. When we get the money, then we can go far, far away." Li Xiaohong jerked his hand away. "Money, money, money. All you think about is money. Now our whole family's been forced to our wits' end. Do you even have the freedom to spend that money? My phone has been ringing non-stop for the past 24 hours. People are scolding me and threatening to kill me. People have peed and splashed feces all over our house. There isn't a single moment when I'm not on my toes. Since you made everything so public, everyone knows our faces now. Where can we go? Everyone would recognize us wherever we go. We'll be mocked at no matter where we live. Even our relatives cut ties with us. I told you not to do this, but you didn't listen. Great, now you've offended a celebrity. It's fine if you're the only one implicated in this, but right now, you've even dragged me into this to suffer with you. You even destroyed our daughter's reputation." Li Xiaohong threw everything in her hands and collapsed onto the floor. "What have I done to deserve to suffer like this? Are you trying to drive me to my death?" "Mommy." The little girl stood helplessly in front of her mother. Li Xiaohong hugged her daughter and started sobbing. "Girl, my poor girl, what have you done to deserve a father like him? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Li Xiaohong seemed to have thought of something. Her terrified eyes lit up as she stared at Zhao Diyong. "Zhao Diyong, did you really do that to our daughter?" Zhao Diyong nearly fainted in anger when he heard her. "Have you lost your mind? How could you believe what those people said? Linlin's my daughter. Even if I scolded and beaten her when I was in a bad mood, I would never do something so despicable. How would I know whether you did it or not? If you could even come up with that wicked idea of framing Han Xianyu for sexually abusing our daughter, how can I be sure you're not lying to me now? You're capable of anything. You crazy woman. You agreed with this idea too. Now you're putting all the blame on me. Zhao Diyang's head was buzzing from this big fight with his wife. Just at that moment, his phone started ringing again. Zhao Diyang felt like he was going crazy. He picked up the phone and started howling at the person on the other line. Get lost. Get away from me. I'll kill you if you call again. As he shouted, suddenly, a man's voice came through the receiver. Mr. Zhao, you don't need to have such a bad temper. I'm here to help you. Zhao Diyang went silent and replied cautiously, Who are you? If somebody volunteered to help him before, he would have believed them. But now, how could anyone want to help him? Who I am isn't important. What's important is that I can get you out of your rut and make the media leave you alone. Hearing this person claim that he could make the media stop harassing him, Zhao Diyang was skeptical that this stranger would be so kind, but still, he couldn't help but ask, Tell me, what do you have in mind to make the reporters stop harassing me? Those reporters are like mad dogs. They won't listen. Tisk, you're a hot piece of news now. Obviously, they won't let you off easily. The man on the phone laughed and said, As long as you revoke the lawsuit and the truth comes out, meaning you have to confess to the public saying you were framing Han Xianyu for money, this matter will cease to be a hot topic and the media would subsequently stop paying attention to you. Zhao Diyang was stunned for a moment before yelling, You think I'm an idiot? You were sent by Han Xianyu, weren't you? If I told the truth, not only would I not get a single cent, I'd have another charge to my name. The only way I would do that is if I was a fool. Hearing Zhao Diyang's anger, the caller kept his composure and replied calmly, Mr. Zhao, I'm afraid you're the foolish one. You still think you'll be given any compensation at this point, huh? Before, Worldwide offered you a settlement so you wouldn't bring this to court, but that was because of pressure from the public. They were worried that if this case dragged on, Han Xianyu would negatively impact the company's image. But things are different now. The public is on Han Xianyu's side, and Worldwide doesn't need to worry about the public's opinion anymore. As for the evidence you presented, you know yourself that it won't stand in a court of law. Han Xianyu will not be convicted of the crimes brought against him. The caller paused and continued. You could afford to be fearless last time because the whole world was on your side. But right now, if you tell the truth now, the media wouldn't have any reason to keep digging for secrets, and your life would return to normal after a few days. However, if you don't withdraw your suit, there will be no end to it, and there will always be people harassing you, pestering you. You'll have to live with harassment from the media and the curses of others for your entire life. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After taking this stranger's call, Zhao Diyang remained silent for a very long time. The last sentence the man said kept replaying in his mind like a curse. You'll have to live with harassment from the media and the curses of others for your entire life. Only a few days had passed, and this was already driving him crazy. He couldn't imagine this dragging on for the rest of his life. Although he wasn't sure who called, everything the man said was true. He was fearless before because the media and public were on his side. But now, nobody believed anything he said. The people who were on his side had turned against him. Not only was he unable to threaten Han Xianyu, he was even despised by everyone. With that thought, Zhao Diyang's final psychological barrier slowly collapsed. A few days later, after the online crusade against Zhao Diyang intensified and angry citizens staged several violent protests, Zhao Diyang posted a note on his Weibo indicating that he would like to have another press conference to clarify the matter and tell the truth. On the day of the press conference, the entire place was flooded with people. It was even more crowded than the last one. The husband and wife hung their heads low and stood in front of the media and an agitated audience with defeated looks. Zhao Diyang looked very haggard and sallow from the vicious attacks from the public. His face was filled with panic and fear. Once the press conference began, he immediately rushed to present the speech he prepared earlier to clear his name. Han Xianyu did not molest or violate my daughter at all. All this was made up by me so that I could receive compensation from him. I was the one who taught my daughter to say those things while I recorded them, and I was also the one who convinced my wife to help me lie to the media. However, I'm really not a pedophile. Never have I done those things to my daughter. My only aim from the beginning was to extort some money from Han Xianyu. Upon hearing what Zhao Deyong said, there was a brief moment of silence followed by an uproar. Oh my God! Han Xianyu is really framed. Exactly how cunning is this couple? They could do something so despicable to someone who helped them? They're shameless. Zhao Deyong really wanted the media to let him off, so he apologized with the utmost sincerity. I've already gone to court to revoke the lawsuit. I am sorry. I am deeply sorry to the media that has helped me. Sorry to the netizens who supported and cheered us on. Sorry to my daughter and wife, and of course, I'm deeply apologetic to Mr. Han Xianyu. I've really learned my lesson. I was greedy and wasn't thinking straight, and I hope everyone can forgive me. Zhao Deyong finished his apology and took a deep bow. Li Chaohong, who was next to him, also apologized to everyone. When the audience heard the couple's apologies, they felt indignant at the injustice and cursed in rage. They think just an apology will do. They're just playing us like fools. You used our sympathy with evil intentions. You're too much. Those die-hard fans of Han Xianyu were in tears when they heard Zhao Deyong's confession and apology. I knew Xianyu would never do such a thing. The media and netizens had the nerve to defend Zhao Deyong and his wife in the beginning. Aren't they the ones who should be apologizing? Thank God we made it to this day. We finally did it. We waited for this day when the truth comes to light. Justice may be delayed, but it'll always appear. Jing Garden. Yi Wanwan sighed as she watched the live telecast and listened to the crowd shouting that phrase, justice may be delayed, but it'll always appear, with burning anger. This phrase was originally from the phrase justice delayed is justice denied, which meant that if legal redress was available but wasn't forthcoming in a timely fashion, it was effectively the same as having no redress at all. However, in the process of translation, it slowly evolved into the phrase spoken by the crowd. In her past life, Han Xianyu did manage to get justice in the end, but by then, his entire life was already ruined. What's the point of having delayed justice? Justice delayed is not worthy of being called justice at all. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. At a certain high-class apartment, the moment Zhao Deyong told the truth and apologized, Fei Yang, who was initially suffocated with anxiety, quickly jumped up and exclaimed, "He promised to deliver in 7 days, and it really has been 7 days. Not a day more, not a day less. Amazing! I couldn't imagine how Yi Bai was going to prove your innocence, but who would have guessed that he could make Zhao Deyong speak the truth himself? You don't have to worry about having trouble in future. We played our chips right this time. Good thing you believed him during the board meeting. Zhou and Bin, that bastard, predicted and hoped for your downfall so the company could groom the actor he was managing. Now I'll see if he's still so cocky." Fei Yang was still agitated when he realized Han Xianyu was just staring at his phone, distracted. So he called out to him, "Xianyu, Xianyu, what's on your mind? Did you see it? Zhao Deyong apologized to you publicly." "I saw it." Han Xianyu was still focused on his phone. Fei Yang looked at him and thought, "Are you waiting for Yi Bai's call?" "That's right. It's been several days. Why hasn't he called yet? I'll call him and ask." Fei Yang went to make a call. In the end, the phone rang for a long time, but nobody answered it. Why isn't he answering? Fei Yang mumbled suspiciously. Fei Yang was about to hang up when someone finally answered the phone and a sweet and warm voice came through the receiver. "Hello? Who's this?" Fei Yang was stunned by the girl's voice and then his face froze. You are?" Han Xianyu was nearby and could roughly hear that the person who answered was a girl. He furrowed his brows and asked, "Wrong number?" Fei Yang stared at his phone. "No. Unless maybe I pressed something else? Why would a woman pick up?" "Xianyu, show me the number again." At the same time in Jing Garden, Yi Wanwan had just seen the live telecast and was about to take a shower. While she was looking for something to wear, she heard her phone ring. As it was an unknown number, She didn't think much about it and picked up the call. But once she answered, she heard a somewhat familiar voice that sounded like Fei Yong. Too careless. Yi Wanwan quickly held her phone away for a moment and cleared her throat, quickly switching to a man's voice. Hello? Manager Fei? I'm Yi Bai. She previously researched about voice-changing techniques and was able to get the knack of it, so her switch was quite smooth. But she would likely encounter this kind of situation again in the future, so she had to be more cautious. Hearing Yi Bai's voice over the phone, Fei Yong then picked up the phone again. Mr. Yi? I thought I called the wrong number. The person just now was... Fei Yong instinctively tried to figure out who the girl was. Yi Wanwan then replied casually, that was my friend. Manager Fei, do you need something? Fei Yong was deep in thought after hearing Yi Bai's reply. Friend? It's already so late. Could it be his girlfriend? But with his looks, it's normal to have a girlfriend. Fei Yong regained his senses and hurriedly said, Cough, just call me Fei Yong. It's nothing really. I just wanted to let you know that Xian you and I watched the live telecast. Bro, you're amazing. Not only did you shift the public's opinion, you even took revenge on this scumbag and proved Xian Yu's innocence completely. We're really grateful to you. Let me know whatever you need. Yangji, you're too courteous. I'll get what I want from Chairman Chu myself, Yi Wanwan replied. Seeing that Yi Bai was very direct and honest, Fei Yang's impression of him improved. All right then. At this moment, Han Xianyu reached out his arm, indicating that he wanted to speak to Yi Bai. Yi Ji, Xianyu wants to talk to you. Fei Yang passed the phone over to Han Xianyu. Han Xianyu remained silent for a few seconds before two words came out of his mouth. Thank you. Yi Wanwan laughed and replied, If you really want to thank me, give me your autograph someday, all right? I'll give it to my friend. She would be over the moon. Han Xianyu nodded and replied solemnly, Sure. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Before going to bed, Yi Wanwan browsed through the web for all the news related to Han Xianyu. Han Xianyu's fans were celebrating and spreading the good news, while the media and netizens all apologized to Han Xianyu and dug out the various kind deeds Han Xianyu did before. Everything worked out great in the end, and to top it all off, Han Xianyu's popularity soared, and even Zhang Yanran, who spoke up for Han Xianyu before being attacked by netizens, gained a little popularity and was given the title of the most beautiful fan. Right now, all that was left to do was pay Chairman Chu a visit so he could honor his promise. The next day at Worldwide Entertainment, compared to the previous time when she was nearly dragged away by the security guards, Yi Wanwan was treated like a VIP now and was escorted by Chu Hongguang personally to his office. When he saw Yi Wanwan, Chu Hongguang immediately stood up and exclaimed, obviously very pleased. Each new generation excels the previous one. Brother Yi, you're really young and capable. The young will surpass us in no time. The young will surpass us in no time. Yi Wanwan replied politely, Chairman Chu, you flatter me. Sit. 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 Chu Hongguang asked the teenager to take a seat, then instructed his assistant to prepare tea. Chu Hongguang lit a cigar and spoke in a good mood. Brother Yi, the PR was executed perfectly this time. Totally perfect. Not only did we get to keep Xianyu, his popularity even soared, spreading the name of Worldwide far and wide. The way you handled the situation was much more shrewd and ruthless than those old-timers. Brother Yi, you have a rare talent. Not bad, not bad. Yi Wanwan sat there in silence, sipping her tea, holding her temper, and listening. After waiting for some time and noticing that Chu Hongguang wasn't going to talk business, she poked at the tea leaves in her teacup and reminded him, Glad you're satisfied, Chairman Chu. Then, what about the two things you promised me? Oh, my memory. Chu Hongguang acted like he just remembered as he tapped on his cigar. He took out a stack of documents and pushed it towards her. Brother Yi, don't worry about it. I already prepared everything that you requested. Yi Wanwan lifted her gaze and looked over. On top of the stack of documents was the document for the transfer of the Golden Seas property. Seeing those three utterly familiar words, Yi Wanwan's eyes glistened as she reached her arm to receive it. However, the moment Yi Wanwan's fingers brushed against the documents, Chu Hongguang suddenly spoke up, Brother Yi. To tell you the truth, this property has a very special meaning to me. I like it a lot, but since Brother Yi has done such a huge favor for me, even if it's very hard for me to part with it, I'll still keep my promise. With that, Chu Hongguang reclined in his leather seat and added, Brother Yi, you know very well that this property is indeed priceless. However, you'll be one of us very soon. Let's not be calculative since we're going to be a family. I will never let you suffer losses, then. As long as you give me 70% of the value of this property, the house belongs to you. Chu Hongguang spoke with eagerness. After hearing what Chu Hongguang said, Yi Wanwan's eyes lit up. Chu Hongguang was a famous and sly old fox indeed. Previously, during her negotiations, her intention was to own this property, but now, he changed his mind and wanted to sell it to her. This sly old fox, Chu Hongguang. There's no way he didn't know that 70% of the price is still an astronomical price tag to an ordinary person. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan's face didn't show much emotion, and the curvature of her lips was unchanged. She knew this Chu Hongguang would never uphold his promises so generously. But, so what? Chu Hongguang expected to see a big change in Yi Wanwan's face, but he noticed there wasn't a trace of anger or unhappiness at all. He found this strange, but still, he kept that hypocritically honest look on his face as he said, Don't worry, I've already completed the agreement. This property is reserved for you. Yi Wanwan raised her brows, the corners of her lips curled upwards, and her alluring eyes slowly lifted. Looking straight at Chu Hongguang's fake old face, Then thank you so much, Chairman Chu. Chu Hongguang wasn't sure what was going on with Yi Wanwan, but after years of experience, he was able to conceal his thoughts deep inside. He pretended to be calm and smiled, then placed a contract in front of her. I also prepared your position. It's totally customized for you. Take a look at it. If everything looks fine, we'll sign the contract today. Oh, that's so much trouble for you, Chairman Chu. Yi Wanwan glanced at the contract. When she reached the first page, Yi Wanwan's eyes narrowed. This wasn't a contract for Worldwide Entertainment, but a contract for a managerial position at one of Worldwide Entertainment's subsidiary corporations, Dazzling Media. There were many subsidiary corporations under Worldwide Entertainment, and Dazzling Media was the weakest among all of them. The only trump card they had was the celebrity under Zhou Wenbin, Gong Su. You could say that Zhou Wenbin had the final say on everything there. Chu Hongguang said sincerely, Dazzling's current state today is in the pits. The whole company is almost relying on one celebrity alone. It's really giving me a headache. Since your performance this time left me so impressed, after careful consideration, I decided to leave this important task to you. I believe that with your abilities, you can bring Dazzling out of its dire predicament. Yi Wanwan's fingers lightly tapped against the white porcelain teacup as she sneered continuously in her heart. This guy is Chu Hongguang indeed. He actually made the word banished sound so nice. Her father fought with Chu Hongguang for many years back in the day, so she already knew of his craftiness. In the circle, he was a famous smiling tiger. He'd swallow you whole with a bright smile on his face. All these tricks by Chu Hongguang. How could she not have guessed it? When Chu Hongguang saw that her execution was flawless this time, he was worried he couldn't dominate her, so naturally, he wanted to display his sovereignty and devised many methods to rein her in. When he noticed Yi Wanwan wasn't speaking, Chu Hongguang pushed another huge stack of documents over. I already ordered every department in Dazzling to work with you. Also, you may choose any artist to manage at Dazzling other than Gong Su since he's been under Wenbin for such a long time. It's not good for him to switch managers halfway through. I've given you the highest privilege. TSK, choose any artist I want? There isn't a single outstanding artist at Dazzling other than Gong Su. What selection do I have to choose from? Yi Wanwan didn't speak nonsense like the sly old fox, Chu Hongguang. She simply picked up the name list given to her and looked through it leisurely. On that list, there wasn't a single artist who was star-worthy. The generosity Chu Hongguang mentioned was simply just him trying to rip her off. Yi Wanwan flipped the pages, one by one, in silence. When she flipped to the last page, her fingers paused and her gaze landed on the name in the corner. Luochen. His masterpiece was Terrifying Dragon. Yi Wanwan seemed to have a positive impression of Luochen since she loved martial arts and obviously watched the classic drama series, Terrifying Dragon. If she remembered correctly, Luochen debuted 3 years ago and played the role of a big boss villain in Terrifying Dragon and exploded with popularity overnight. With such a high starting point and his extremely good looks, everything should have gone smoothly for him, but there seemed to be no news of him after his debut. The acting experience stated in Luochen's resume was beyond pathetic other than Terrifying Dragon, which was his only notable work. He didn't even play a minor character in any show after having been in the industry for 3 years. The only highlight on his resume was the photo of himself. In the photo, with the sunset in the background, the teenager was sitting on a railing in a white t-shirt and jeans, looking into the distance. He had an extremely delicate face, and his soft hair was slightly ruffled by the wind. His clear, bright eyes filled with vitality. With his looks and classiness, he truly deserved the title the citizen's first love. Such a pity that there wasn't any news about him for last 3 years. This person who was once called the citizen's first love was slowly forgotten by everyone. Logically speaking, it was impossible for an artist like him who had passed his prime to become famous within a short period of time and help Yi Wanwan land her first pot of gold. However, when Yi Wanwan saw Luochen's name, a smile flashed on her face. She already expected that Chu Hongguang wouldn't let her work at the main office and wouldn't let her go anywhere worthwhile. She already predicted that Chu Hongguang would exile her to the barren, down-and-out dazzling media. And the first artiste Yi Wanwan spotted was Luochen. According to her memory, there would be a chance for Luochen to explode in popularity again sometime in the near future. As long as she grabbed hold of this opportunity, she'd be able to help Luochen rise again. But in her past life, Luochen missed this chance just like when he was 18 years old. He was tremendously popular for a moment, then suddenly vanished without a trace. After that, Luochen's name never ever appeared again. But this time, she wouldn't allow Luochen to miss such a good opportunity. She would undoubtedly make Luochen's name spread across the entertainment industry once again. With that thought, Yi Wanwan pointed at Luochen's information and said directly, "I want him." Chu Hongguang looked at the person Yi Wanwan pointed out, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. "Are you sure?" Chu Hongguang was slightly surprised with Yi Wanwan's choice. There weren't many artistes in dazzling media who had potential, but the person Yi Wanwan chose was even more unattractive than the rest. Even he'd forgotten this person existed. "I'm sure," Yi Wanwan said firmly. Chu Hongguang saw she was very determined, and he sneered in his heart. Before, when he witnessed her settling Han Xianyu's incident competently, he thought this Yi Bai was very capable, but from what he saw today, this person had horrible judgment. He hadn't even heard of this artist's name before. He seemed to be very popular from a martial arts series, but he didn't have any other notable works and had no exposure at all. He was just a pretty face without any substance. There were too many good-looking people in the entertainment industry, and an overwhelming number of them had looks like his. This Yi Bai was still too young. He had an abundance of ambition but was still lacking in experience. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Chu Hongguang wanted Yi Bai to lose out a little on purpose and was somewhat delighted at this outcome. Thus, he stopped trying to persuade him and whipped out his big pen, signing his name on the document. "All right, this person belongs to you now. Take this and bring it to Wenbin to do some handover procedures, and you're good to go." Yi Wanwan also signed the same document. "Thanks, Chairman Chu. I already got someone to tidy up your office, and you'll also receive top treatment at the staff dormitory. You can go take a look today. If there's anything unsatisfactory, do let me know." Chu Hongguang held his beer belly and placed a bunch of keys in front of Yi Wanwan, smiling. "Hee, Yi Bai, do your best. I have high expectations of you." Yi Wanwan took the keys and saw the gold-plated words, "Grandview Park." Chu Hongguang didn't cheat her on this. It was indeed the best staff dormitory in worldwide. Many famous managers and stars lived there. Even Han Xianyu stayed there for a period of time before he was famous. I shall stop by the dorm first, then I'll see how it goes from there after I've settled down. According to her observations, Ce Han was just as he'd agreed. He didn't interfere with anything she did. But moving out of Jean Garden wasn't a trivial matter, so she didn't have much confidence in his reaction. After she left the worldwide building, Yuanwan tested the waters by sending a text to Ce Han. Baby, I went to worldwide today and got the job. If everything goes smoothly, I'll be able to start work tomorrow. But it's slightly inconvenient if I keep living at Jean Garden, so I think I'll be moving to the staff dorm. Usually, after she sent a text, Ce Han would reply almost instantly, but this time, it was like throwing a rock into the big sea. After waiting for a long time without a reply, Yuanwan sent a text to Sue. Housekeeper Sue. What's Ce Han doing? I just sent him a text. Has he seen it? After some time, Sue replied, he's in a meeting. He looked at his phone just now. I think he might have seen it. My dear little grandaunt, what did you send him? Although Sui didn't mention Ce Han's reaction after reading the message, judging from Sui's tone, she could roughly guess. He's probably furious. Yuanwan supported her head in her hand and let out a sigh. There was no other way. Managers usually didn't live too far from their artistes. Most of them even lived with the artiste so they could deal with anything that came up suddenly. It was way too inconvenient for her to live at Jean Garden. She had to move out sooner or later, so this step was unavoidable. I used roses last time. What should I use to coax him this time? Yuanwan thought about it for a long time. She returned to Jean Garden, then went to the market to buy some things. After buying all the things she needed, Yuanwan noticed it was almost the end of the workday and headed to see Corporation again. The little secretary had a deep impression of him. Her eyes sparkled the moment she saw him. Mr. Yi, you're looking for Chairman Si? His meeting should be ending soon. I'll bring you upstairs. Yuanwan was almost blinded by that pair of eyes, burning with desire for gossip. The corners of her mouth twitched as she nodded politely. Thank you. After they went upstairs, the little secretary led him directly to the staff area, opposite the meeting room, to take a seat. Chairman Si should be done soon. Why don't you wait here? Sure. Yuanwan nodded and placed the objects in her hands down. Then, she instinctively glanced towards the meeting room. From her direction, she could look through the glass window and see Ce Han in the meeting. The frosty Ce Han was speaking to the people inside, but seemed to notice her when his gaze paused at her for a moment. Yuanwan was about to wave, but Ce Han already turned away. The little secretary obviously couldn't leave a VIP alone, so she accompanied Yuanwan while at the same time, sneakily sizing him up. The man's facial features were like a drawing. His skin was better than woman's. His flawless profile was simply like a piece of art. He was cupping his chin in his hand at this moment and looked towards the meeting room with a worried expression. The little secretary saw his expression and couldn't help but ask, Mr. Yi, I noticed you don't seem to be in a good mood today. Did something happen? The teenager's eyes were fixed on the cool and elegant beauty in the room, and he sighed, Yeah, I'm not in a good mood. Your boss is being difficult. The little secretary. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.